The Legend of the Ninja from the Hidden Mist Village. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 101. First time. I was once alone too, not understanding the meaning of my life, and was extremely miserable. Even the more Naruto thought about it, the more terrified he became. Cold sweat silently dripped down his forehead and onto the floor. Suddenly, a big powerful hand patted Naruto on the shoulder. His body trembled. He turned around in surprise and saw Mingshin calmly shaking his head at him, revealing a smile and muttering subconsciously, "Mingshin. Yeah, compared to him, I still have Iruka-sensei, Hotaru, Kimimaro, Kakashi, Sakura, Sasuke and others." Naruto gradually calmed down. Mingshin's pat dispelled the panic in his heart that arose after listening to Gaara's story. They all accepted my existence, making me feel real for the first time about being alive. But this guy has been living alone, relying on killing people to get the sense of being alive. He clenched his fists. There are actually such people. Naruto, don't compare your own world with others. Huh. Naruto's whole body shook, and even Shikamaru couldn't help but look over. Don't think about it. You can't beat this guy. Don't forget it. Mingshin seemed to have seen through his thoughts. He took a deep breath and shouted, "You are the man who boasted in front of me before and aspired to be the Hokage." Hokage, Hokage. Mingshin's words stimulated Naruto's pulses all over his body, and he became restless again, flowing and circulating in his blood. After closing his eyes and thinking deeply, he resolutely opened his eyes and looked at Gaara. "Mingshin, thank you for your reminder. I almost backed down because of this. Mingshin, this guy's really good." Shikamaru raised the corner of his mouth and admired him. "If so, Mingshin." Gaara was extremely angry at his unreasonable persistence and trust, as if his existence was completely denied by him. Sand. Suddenly, a large pile of sand gushed out from behind the angry Gaara. In just a moment, the hall was full of sand. "What's going on?" Shikamaru was shocked. "I clearly used the shadow imitation technique to block this guy's movements." "Humph, you didn't kill me last time in the Death Forest." Mingshin choked and pulled out an extremely sharp sword, pointing the blade at Gaara. "Do you think you can kill me now? You can wait and see." Gaara looked at Mingshin with eyes full of hostility and said, "See if I can kill you." Several waves of sand rushed out from the ground, attacking the three people from different positions. "That's it." A loud shout resounded through the hospital hall. "HMM." Everyone looked at the entrance and saw that the person who came was the examiner from the preliminaries, Bayan Yesan. He walked in expressionlessly and shook his ponytail. "The official exam is tomorrow. There's no need to be so anxious." After looking around, he said coldly to several people, "Or do you want to lie here in the hospital today and give up the competition directly?" "No, that's not the case. We are all joking. I just want to come and visit Choji." The three of them explained to the examiner one by one, saying that it was just a small misunderstanding between each other. Yesan snorted coldly and didn't intend to expose them. Gaara suddenly hugged his head in great pain and squatted on the ground. Some fragments of his childhood kept flashing through his mind. He closed his eyes and roared, and the sand began to flow back into the earth god at a very fast speed until it completely dissipated from the ground. After a while, Gaara finally stood up with difficulty and walked away from the three people with a hunched back. When he passed by Yishan and walked to the gate, he turned around and said with resentment, "I will definitely kill you guys with my own hands. Just wait." When the evil spirit finally left, Shikamaru immediately relaxed and took a deep breath. Finally, that guy left. Naruto looked at Gaara's back as he left. After thinking for a while, he no longer worried about this matter. "How did you guys get into a conflict with Gaara of the Sand Ninja in the hospital?" Yishan asked the others. "This is what happened." The others briefly recounted what happened to him. "Hey, Mr. Bayan, you're here." Hearing this voice, everyone looked in the corridor and found that the two nurses who had gone to eat were back on duty. "Oh, I just arrived not long ago too," Yishan said to them. "Hey, Mingshan looked up at the clock and thought to himself, oh no, it's 5:40. I have to go to the park quickly. He quickly apologized to Hayama and Naruto, then hurriedly left the hospital and rushed to the agreed place. TSK, what is Mingshan going to do in such a hurry? Naruto was puzzled. Who knows? Shikamaru scratched his head and said to him, let's go see Choji. Okay. The two also said goodbye to the examiner and left the hall, leaving Hayama standing at the front desk, talking about business with the nurse on duty. Jumping along the roof all the way, Mingshan did not forget to take out the comb from his arms and tidy up his hair. Suddenly he thought, hey, why did I forget to buy flowers? Look at my memory. He quickly changed the route and accelerated to the flower shop opened by Ino's family. Ding, ding. Ino was leaning over the front desk to help the adults keep the bills. When he heard the door open, he was about to raise his head to greet the guests. Welcome. No need to give change. Ding, ding. She only saw a black shadow on the table, throwing two large bills. She didn't have time to see who it was. She took the money with a confused look on her face, muttering, who is this? A strange guy. In a corner of the park, Hangdao sat quietly on the swing, swaying slightly, and raised her wrist to look at the watch from time to time. It's 5:58. She muttered. Swish. Boom. Fuck. A group of black shadows was running towards Hangdao quickly, but accidentally tripped and fell flat on their faces. They slid in front of her, sticking their butts out, looking extremely funny. Puff. Hangdao couldn't help laughing. Hey, I'm talking to you. Do you have to be so exaggerated? Mingshan got up from the ground awkwardly, brushed off the dust on his body. Hey, it's a mistake. It's not because I was worried that you would wait for me for too long, so I rushed over in a hurry. As he said that, he reached into his arms to feel around. What are you looking for? Hangdao asked him. Here, this is for you. Mingshan smiled and took out a few pink flowers from his arms and handed them to her. Isn't this? Hangdao asked him with a strange look after seeing clearly. Are these the flowers the clerk helped you choose? No. Mingshan scratched his head. I was in a hurry when I went to the flower shop. When I saw them, as soon as I entered the door, I just bought a few flowers for you. Don't mention it. The flowers are pretty. PFFT. These are carnations. She smiled and looked at Mingshan, who was stunned. Today is not Mother's Day. Are you sure you want to give me this? Chapter 102 Vodka. Mingshan's face suddenly turned red, and he was so embarrassed that he wanted to swallow the flower into his stomach. Seeing his embarrassed look, Hangdao smiled and said, well, it's not easy for you to make this trip, so I'll accept it reluctantly. He stretched out his hand to take the carnation. Well, next time I will definitely look carefully before buying. Next time. Well, let's not talk about this. Let's go. Mingshan quickly changed the subject and said, let's go eat barbecue together. The two left the park and strolled on the street. He took Hangdao to a famous barbecue restaurant, opened the door attentively, and made a gesture to invite her in. You kid. Hangdao was amused by his skillful and skilled method and followed him into the house and came to the inner box. After counting the ingredients needed, the two rarely did not argue with each other and talked about the various interesting things that happened in the village recently. For the first time, she felt that Mingshan could be like an old friend she hadn't seen for many years. She opened her heart and had a deep conversation with him. Unconsciously, she told him all the experiences she had when she was a child. Hey, I didn't expect that you and Kakashi Sensei had teamed up to carry out such a dangerous mission together. Mingshan picked up a piece of roasted tenderloin and sighed to her, facing such an enemy. Didn't you feel scared? Of course I didn't. Hangdao picked up the sake on the table, took a sip, and looked nostalgic. I was so scared. I was only 16 years old at the time. It was the first time I faced such a dangerous and difficult enemy. My legs were shaking and weak. If Asuma and Kakashi hadn't persevered to the end and waited for reinforcement to rescue me, the ending would be unimaginable. As the two sighed. Hey, Hangdao. Yuhi Hang, who passed by the window of the box, accidentally saw them and walked over to greet the two inside. Hey, Hang, why are you here? Just passing by. Hangdao turned to look out the window and exchanged a few words with her. Teacher Hang, if you don't mind, come in and sit for a while. Mingshan saw that the two of them were having a good chat, so he simply invited Ziri Han to come in and sit with them. Okay, then I'll be rude to refuse, Ziri Han said with a gentle smile. But soon, Mingshan regretted it. As soon as he entered the room, Han sat next to Han Dao naturally. Seeing the wine in her glass, he said dissatisfiedly, drinking this kind of wine is not strong enough. Then he shouted outside the box, boss, a bottle of vodka. Okay, sir, I'll send it to you later. The boss, who was busy outside the door, immediately responded loudly and told the waiter to put a bottle of vodka on a plate and bring it into the box. Question mark? Mingshan, who was sitting opposite, was a little dumbfounded and blurted out in his heart, is this still the Ziri Han I know? Teacher. Hey, Mingshan. Han took the wine from the waiter, unscrewed the cap with great force, and filled his empty glass with vodka first. Come on, have a drink too. Hey, teacher, I'm only 14 years old, according to the village. Hey, what 14 years old? Han filled her own glass and drank it. The unique light and refreshing taste of vodka immediately lingered in her stomach and she praised it endlessly. After a hard day's work, I have to drink a glass of vodka to relieve my fatigue. Then, she seriously educated Mingshan. On the wine table, there are only men and women. Mingshan. Mingshan felt something was wrong after hearing Han's divine education, especially when he saw that the sake in Han Dao's glass was also replaced by vodka by her, and he said to himself, fuck, it's bad. Hey, Han, you're doing this again, really? Han Dao seemed to be used to it, just shook her head and smiled bitterly at her. Ding. After filling the glass, Han clinked glasses with hers very skillfully and said with a smile, come on, cheers, Han Dao. Then he glanced at Mingshan and said, you should also bring it up quickly, come together. Well, teacher, even if we have to drink, at least we should add some water, right? Mingshan picked up his own glass and carefully suggested to her. Hey, what water do you want to add? Han rejected his suggestion. If you are a man, just raise your neck and drink it. After she finished drinking first, she stared at the two of them. Han Dao had to drink it too, nodded with satisfaction, and then urged Mingshan, hurry up, we've finished it all. Okay. Mingshan had no choice but to drink the wine in the glass in one gulp. As soon as it entered his body, the unique fiery stimulation of vodka immediately filled his stomach. Mingshan was not afraid to drink. In his previous life, he often accompanied his roommates to eat and drink. He just had never touched such a strong wine in his previous life for this life. Fuck, this won't work. Sooner or later, Teacher Han will. Just as he was about to find a random excuse to take Han Dao away, Han skillfully filled his glass with vodka and commented, not bad, Mingshan, you can drink quite a lot. She seduced him very skillfully. I'm optimistic about you. Come on, keep going, let's drink. After that, she did not allow Mingshan to refuse and clinked glasses first. It's over. I'm going to get drunk. He was complaining in his heart, but he had no way to deal with it. He wanted to refuse, but he couldn't bring himself to do it, so he had to bite the bullet and drink another sip. Oh, that's more like it. As the alcohol evaporated, Zhe Hang's cheeks began to turn slightly red, and with her black curly hair and red eyes, she looked particularly charming. She continued to persuade Mingshan, men can't say they are not good enough. You have to be more courageous to pursue Han Dao. Puff. Puff. Hearing her amazing words, both of them spit out the wine they had just drunk, and almost choked. What nonsense are you talking about? Han Dao was so embarrassed that she wanted to pinch her waist, but she avoided the attack early. Hey, I'm not talking nonsense. I don't know who it was yesterday who told me that white porridge tasted good. Han continued to tease in a very mischievous way, with the alcohol rising. You. Han Dao couldn't say anything more after saying the word you. Hey, Teacher Han. Hey, we women are talking. Why are you, a stinky man, butting in? Shut up and be quiet. Mingshan was helpless after being scolded by Ziri Han. He smacked his lips twice and really stopped talking. He stared at the two of them speechlessly. You are drunk again, aren't you? Han Dao stopped her from raising her hand to drink and wiped the wine stains from the corners of her mouth with a flushed face and said unhappily, I didn't. I just had something to say. Han smiled mysteriously at Mingshan. The expression and eyes meant that you know. Boss, another bottle of vodka. Mingshan received the message conveyed by this look, opened the door, and waved to the boss for it. Hey, what are you doing? Hong Dao was very angry when he saw Mingshan cooperate with others so well. It turned out that he was willing to spend a lot of money to make this drunkard continue to expose the news. It was so hateful. Chapter 103 I can't help falling in love with you. Okay. The boss replied enthusiastically, I'll send it right away. Since you're so sensible, I will. Hong had just finished a glass of wine and was about to reveal something, but she didn't expect that. Hey, Hong, if you dare to talk nonsense again in front of Mingshan, Hong Dao threatened her sinisterly, I will kill that rough and sloppy guy you like. Click. Without giving Hong Dao a chance to finish her words, he directly reached out to cover her mouth and smiled awkwardly but politely. Haha, we are all adults. It's just a joke. Why take it seriously? Teacher? Mingshan secretly felt bad. Could it be that? Well, actually, Mingshan, a man chasing a woman is like a mountain between two mountains. As long as you persevere and work hard to climb over the difficulties, you will have a happy ending. Han suddenly changed her tone and talked about the meaningless chicken soup for the soul. It turned out that she turned her face and denied it after getting the wine. Fuck. Mingshan immediately quit and cursed inwardly. He wanted to ask her to continue to expose the secrets, but when he saw Hong Dao staring at him with a bad face, the corners of his mouth twitched. He had no choice but to give up with a heartache and swallow the bitter fruit with gritted teeth. Hong Dao saw that Mingshan had become honest again and did not ask any more questions, but smiled happily and took the initiative to bring the wine glass over to clink with her as a reward for his coming on the road. Ding. Mingshan picked up the wine glass and clinked it with her lightly. Seeing her blushing face and smiling so sweetly, he raised his hand and drank the wine in the glass. In a trance, Mingshan's heart seemed to be hit hard by something heavy. He had seen many girls who were more beautiful and more elegant than Hong Dao on TV in his previous life, but only at this moment. Only the slightly drunk smiling face was deeply imprinted in his mind and would never go away. Hong Dao, you are really beautiful. Mingshan subconsciously said to her naturally, I will never forget the moment of drinking with you tonight. I will remember this moment for the rest of my life. Yes, even many years later, no matter how the world changes, he will never forget this beauty. Hong Dao, who was drinking, was suddenly moved by his nonsense for no reason. She was stunned for a while, before she said hesitantly, You suddenly, what nonsense are you talking about? Her breathing was a little faster and her heart was beating fast. Oh, I'm drunk. Mingshan smiled bitterly and comforted Hong Dao. Sorry, Hong Dao. It's okay. Pretending not to care, she filled her glass with wine and drank it all in one gulp. After the two of them made excuses, Hong Dao and Mingshan continued to clink glasses with Zirahong and drink, but the eyes between them seemed to be stealing glances at each other. Hey. Seeing this, Hong smiled meaningfully and said to the two of them, You two. The two were staring at each other casually and were startled by Hong's sudden interruption and quickly shifted their gaze. What's wrong with me and him? Hong Dao pretended to be calm. Don't think too much. It's impossible for me and him to be together. Yeah. Mingshan echoed and explained to Hong. She doesn't like me. Hey, I didn't say anything. Hong teased the two of them. What are you in a hurry to cover up? Puff. The wine that the two had just drunk was sprayed out again. Okay, let's not talk about this. Come, let's drink this cup together. Hong stopped teasing at the right time, persuaded the two of them to drink, and clinked their glasses together. Danzo-sama. In the abandoned fortress, after Orochimaru left early to prepare for tomorrow's affairs, a masked ninja walked out of the darkness, half knelt on the ground, and reported to Danzo. Oh, it's Tojin who is back. Danzo turned around and spoke to the person who came. The things have been taken from the two people in the land of craftsmen. He fumbled out a scroll from his arms, presented it with both hands, and handed it to Danzo. Well, it's well done. Danzo took the scroll and looked deeply at the kneeling Tsuchijin, looking into the dark distance. Time passed quickly, and in a blink of an eye, the originally bustling crowd on the street gradually became darker as the night deepened, and many shops began to close down for a break. I don't know if it was 6 or 7 rounds of drinking. Mingshan, with a red face, supported Han Dao and staggered out of the barbecue house with Yuhi. I'll go back from this side, bye. Mingshan originally planned to send Han teacher back first, but she said indifferently that she could walk back alone. Hey, where is Han Dao's home? Mingshan saw her lifting her legs to leave, so he hurriedly asked. Her home is not far from here, thank you for your hard work. Yuhi only left him this sentence, and then left alone drunkenly. Big sister, how close is very close? Where exactly is this? Mingshan had no useful information and his head hurt a lot. He had been cheated by Han all night, and lost his temper. Ugh. Han Dao covered her mouth in discomfort, and rushed to the street lamp to vomit. She pressed her face against the pole, and vomited all over. Are you okay, Han Dao? Mingshan saw this, and ran over to pat her back to relieve her pain. He used his hands to wipe off the wine stains on her mouth. Well, I'm fine. You go back first. Han Dao wanted to push Mingshan away in her drunken eyes and go home alone, but her hands were powerless. Really? Mingshan patted himself twice, even though he was dizzy. After he sobered up a little, he half knelt down and gently carried Han Dao on his back and walked forward step by step. Hey, Kit, where are you taking me? Han Dao was shaken on his back and became more sober. She muttered to herself and slapped his face with her hands. HMPH, you dare to do something weird to me, but you, after getting drunk, are really as willful as a child. Mingshan carried the heavy weight of Han Dao and walked lightly. Under the vast starry sky, Mingshan seemed to be carrying his entire world on his back, moving forward silently. Mingshan, why are you here too? Hearing the voice, he looked forward and found that it was Naruto standing at the door of Ichiraku ramen restaurant, with half a foot just stepped in. Tomorrow is the official competition. What are you still doing here? Mingshan was puzzled. It was so late, why didn't he go back to rest? Oh, I'm here to have some supper at Ichiraku, and then I'll go back to sleep. While Naruto was talking, he saw someone on his back. After careful identification, he was surprised and said, hey, isn't the examiner on your back the one from the second round? Well, she's drunk. I'll go first. See you later, Naruto. Mingshan didn't talk to him much. After a simple farewell, he walked away. Mingshan walked aimlessly with Han Dao on his back. He stopped at a corner of the street and thought to himself, it's not a good idea to keep walking like this. Forget it. I'll take her to the park to sit and rest for a while. After making up his mind, he carried her on his back and started walking towards the park. Hey, that's Mingshan. Behind Mingshan, Shikamaru was standing outside a tavern, muttering to himself curiously. On his back, it seems to be the examiner from the second round. Oh, forget it. I haven't even finished my own business yet. How can I care about others? After saying that, he raised his head, glanced at the name of the tavern, muttered to himself, Kule. Then he walked in and shouted, hey, Dad. Chapter 104 her second time. Tomorrow. Temari, who was sitting on the balcony wiping the 3-star fan, murmured, yeah. Kankuro, who was also adjusting the crow, echoed her. Gara came back and sat alone on the roof to admire the moon after being scolded by Maki and said to himself, tomorrow, is it a full moon? Konoha under the moon. After walking a long way, they came to the park. Mingshan put Han Dao on the leisure bench and just sat down to take a breath. Darn. Han Dao's head immediately leaned heavily against his shoulder. Mingshan originally planned to get up and get some water to wake Han Dao up, but when they were close to each other and saw the sleeping face with a faint red, he smiled knowingly and gently scratched her nose. I really admire you. People drool when they are asleep. He quietly reached out and wiped the corners of her mouth for her. He adjusted Han Dao's body, letting her lie flat on the bench, and put her in a comfortable sleeping position. Then he went to a nearby department store that was still open, bought a blanket and a pillow, and rushed back to cover her head with the blanket. After finishing all this, he took off the Konoha forehead protector on his forehead, sat down on the ground, leaned against the bench, looked up at the brightest star in the night sky, stared for a long time, then turned his eyes away, smiled and whispered to her, good night, Han Dao. It was late at night at home, and the lights in Mingshan's house were still on. Hina, go back and rest first. Kimimaro closed the book and said to the drowsy girl who had been holding her little head with her hands. Okay. Aang originally wanted to wait until she came back tomorrow to question him, but she couldn't stand the sleepiness and had no choice but to go back to sleep first. After sending her back to the house to rest, Kimimaro turned around and walked back. He rubbed his tired green eyes, stretched his muscles, and decided not to wait until tomorrow and wanted to go to bed early. He walked for a while and stopped. He stood under the starry sky, looking deeply at the starry sky of Konoha village. I really hope I can spend more time with Mengchen and Hotaru. In fact, Kimimaro never had any hope from the bottom of his heart that he could be cured. He is not afraid of death. Why should he die? He is just worried about what will happen to the two people he cares about most after his death. After a long time, Kimimaro retracted his gaze just as he was about to continue walking. Two masked ninjas suddenly appeared behind him, and someone walked in front of him. Who are you? Kimimaro asked, but unfortunately the two people behind him did not answer him. Haha, they won't say a word unless I speak first. The man came with a cane, tapping the ground heavily, and stood in front of Kimimaro. Half of his face was wrapped in bandages. He looked up and down with his only remaining eye and shook his head. What a pity, it would be perfect without this disease. Who are you? Kimimaro ignored his regret and asked directly. Hey, my name is Shimura Danzo. In the early morning, when the first ray of sunlight passed through the clouds and landed on Konoha village, Mengchen also woke up. He yawned and stood up. Just when he was about to stretch his muscles, he accidentally caught a glimpse of Hangdao, who was still sleeping on the bench. You haven't woken up yet? Mengchen leaned forward slightly, stretched out his hand and carefully helped Hangdao to brush away the messy bangs on her forehead. Go wash it with water. It would be bad if she saw me with such a tired look on my face. After making up his mind, he quickly ran to the nearby public toilet and turned on the faucet on the sink to wash. Wow. After a while of washing, the whole person felt much clearer. After sorting out his mental state, he returned to Hangdao. Hangdao frowned. Her eyelids kept moving left and right, and she took a long time to slowly open her eyes. The first thing that caught her eye was a very familiar seaweed head. His hairline was not good looking, and he looked at him with a gentle smile. Why are you here? After a long time, Hangdao came back to her senses and quickly sat up and pushed him away. What is this? She noticed that she was covered with a blanket, a bench and a pillow. I was drunk last night, and I don't know where your home is. Mengchen reached out and handed her a towel. Wipe your face with it, you'll be more energetic. You. Hangdao took the towel uncertainly and then looked at him. Where did you sleep last night? I slept next to your bench. Mengchen asked her with a smile on his face. Otherwise, where do you think I slept? I thought. Hangdao was only halfway through her words, as if she thought of something embarrassing. Her face suddenly turned red, and she simply lowered her head and kept silent. Mengchen saw that Hangdao's cheeks suddenly turned so red, and quickly raised his hand to remove the forehead protector on her forehead to measure it, and felt it carefully, and said in surprise, well, it's not that hot. Hangdao was confused by this for a while and didn't react, but in the next moment, TSK, why is your face so red? Mengchen said to himself rather worriedly, and as he said that, he put his forehead against hers, leaning very close to her, to measure her body temperature, to see what was going on. You, what are you doing? Hangdao's face flushed even more after Mengchen's forehead came close to her. She pushed him away in shame, panting. Hangdao fanned herself with her hands to cool down. God knows what will happen if she continues to look at him. What's wrong, Hangdao? Mengchen didn't understand her reaction. Hangdao didn't say anything, but stood up from the bench, stretched her muscles and bones, and then said, I'm fine. That's good. Mengchen retied the forehead protector for herself, folded the blanket and pillow, and then sealed them in the scroll. Cough. Hangdao coughed heavily. Well, I'll go first. The words were very serious, but the tone was stuttering. Oh, okay. Mengchen tried not to laugh. It's better to go back early. In a few hours, the competition will start. Yeah. She just responded softly, which was very different from usual. Her eyes shifted unnaturally and looked elsewhere. What are you doing? Are you afraid to look at me? Mingshan grinned and walked in front of her. I won't eat you. Go back quickly. TSK, who said I? Hongdao was about to retort, but unexpectedly, the next moment, her lips were kissed tightly by him with his eyes closed. She wanted to push Mingshan away with force, and then beat him up, until he begged for mercy, but unfortunately, at this moment, all the strength in her body seemed to be drained, and she couldn't move. After a long time, Mingshan slowly opened his eyes, looked at Hongdao and said, I'm leaving. I have to go back, to take care of Kimimaro. I haven't been back all night. He took the initiative to step back, waved to her, and disappeared. Chapter 105 A critical moment. Red Bean seemed to have experienced something incredible. She was stunned for a long time. Little kids gradually came to play in the park. She left in a daze, muttering to herself, I'm really crazy. I was kissed by this kid twice. Early in the morning, in a dense forest somewhere in the back mountain of Konoha, a little bat stayed on the top of a big tree that was pierced with darts and hidden weapons. It lowered its head curiously and looked at the people under the tree. After 2 rounds of throwing, Xianshan was so tired that he bent over and gasped for breath. Now there is not even a scratch. He praised the person standing in front of him. It's perfect, Niji. Well, let's stop here for the warm-up activities. We should leave soon. Niji turned around and said to her, you have to ask Teacher K. Xianshan shouted to the 2 people on the other side in the distance. Hey, Teacher K, Lee, it's time for us to set off. Huh. They were already sweating profusely after practicing so early in the morning. After hearing Xianshan's loud urging, the 2 of them raised their lips and asked Xiaoli, Lee, how are you adjusting your state? Xiaoli stood up very imposingly and said, I'm always ready, Teacher K. Very good, Niji, Tenten, let's set off. Okay. On the edge of a small river far away from the dense forest, 2 people wrapped tightly stood there quietly. After a long time, a few small insects crawled from the ground to the slightly shorter boy wearing sunglasses. It's almost time to go to the scene, Shino. The man behind him spoke. Well, let's go. Shino simply nodded and responded. As the sky gradually brightened, the gates of Konoha village opened in time to welcome the last batch of Daimyo convoys that arrived in advance to the Fire Country Ninja Village. The number of people walking on the streets began to increase a lot, some from this village and some from other villages. Mingshan had a smile on his face. He crossed several streets and bought breakfast first. After several turns, he ran back to his door. However, just as he arrived, he suddenly saw Aang, who was just coming downstairs. Girl. He was about to greet her and chat for a few words, ready to be scolded, but unexpectedly, Mingshan. The girl heard his voice and ran towards him anxiously, holding a letter in her hand, saying, Kimimaro was kidnapped. What did you say? Mingshan was a little surprised when he heard it. Take a look. Aang handed him the letter. Mingshan took the letter, unfolded it and read it, and almost crushed the paper. He was quite annoyed. TSK, Danzo. What should I do now? Aang asked him. Mingshan lowered his head and thought deeply. He considered for a moment. Just as he was hesitant, a voice rang in his ears. Hey, kid, when did you come back? Huh. Aang turned around and saw a middle-aged man with white hair walking towards them. The girl asked Mingshan in confusion, who is this man? He seems to know you. Mingshan's eyes lit up immediately after hearing the voice. He did not answer the question, but turned to the girl with a mysterious smile and said, there is a way. On the outskirts of Konoha village, in a bamboo forest path. Danzo was alone in the forest, resting his eyes and waiting. After a while, whoosh, whoosh, 2 masked ninjas flashed out, half knelt on one knee in front of him and reported, Danzo-sama. How is it? He asked without opening his eyes. The people are here. One of the ninjas said respectfully. Bring him here. Yes. Swish, swish. The 2 disappeared in an instant, and when they reappeared, they were already outside the bamboo forest. They said to Mingshan, who had been waiting alone for a long time, come with us. Master Danzo wants to see you. Okay. Mingshan responded and followed them into the bamboo forest. Following along, he sensed that there were many people lurking in the sky above the bamboo forest. He laughed at himself secretly. What a grand show. Is this all prepared for me alone? Staring at the back of the ninja leading the way in front of him, he thought, TSK, if the answer doesn't satisfy Danzo, will I be killed on the spot by him? After walking a long way, the few people came to Danzo. Long time no see, Mingshan. Danzo took the initiative to greet him. I don't deserve it, you are too polite. Mingshan said to him in a perfunctory manner. Master Danzo has something to ask me. Just summon me. Why go to so much trouble? Huh. Danzo smiled and smiled at him very coldly. It will take a lot of trouble. He took out a scroll from his arms. What is this? He asked, pretending not to understand. HMPH, don't pretend in front of me. Danzo flicked his wrist and threw the scroll into the air. Whoosh. A ninja rushed out from behind him, quickly formed a seal, and launched a fire ninjutsu, burning it to ashes. I originally wanted to control you through this information and use it for my own purposes, but unfortunately, I entrusted it to the wrong person. Danzo confessed to him without any concealment. TSK, Danzo-sama, are you taking the initiative to tear your face with me? Mingshan was too lazy to beat around the bush with him, and his face became serious. Where is Kimimaro? Haha, don't worry, he is a guest in a very safe place. Danzo said with interest. How about it? What is your answer? No. Mingshan was also very straightforward and frank. I'm sorry, I'm not interested in being a dog for others. I'm sorry, that can't be helped. Danzo closed his eyes with regret, muttering to himself, something I can't get. Swish, swish, swish. A large number of ninjas rushed out. Everyone drew out their ninja swords, and the cold light flashed, surrounding Mingshan. When Danzo opened his eyes again, he was full of murderous intent. No one else can get it. Hey, is this true? I'm still a genin in the village. Mingshan looked around without showing any fear. He knew that even begging for mercy would be useless, so he asked tentatively, you dare to kill me like this? Aren't you afraid that the Hokage will blame you? A dead man is lying here. What is there to worry about? Danzo reached out and touched the bandage on his face. Don't think that you can be fearless just because you can use some would escape ninjutsu. TSK, kid, I don't dare. Mingshan also bent over when he saw this. I'm not that arrogant. He drew his sword and prepared to fight. Just when the atmosphere on the scene was extremely subtle and a fierce fight was about to break out. Bang, boom. Out of thin air, a huge toad descended from the bamboo forest around them and fell to the ground, causing violent shaking. Everyone looked at the sudden appearance of the uninvited guest in surprise. A ninja under Danzo's command subconsciously shouted at him, who are you? Good question. I'm the Toad Elf Sinsodo from Miyaboki Mountain. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Mingshan glared at him standing on the big toad with dissatisfaction and said arrogantly, hurry up and jump down to help, Jiraiya. Jiraiya was interrupted by this kid before he could finish his opening remarks. He jumped down in embarrassment and glared back at him, cursing in his heart, smelly boy, if it wasn't for the book The Saint's Monastery written by Feng Zhangxiao, would I be ordered around like this by you? TSK. Danzo stared at the white hair in front of him with an extremely ugly expression, gritted his teeth and said, you really know how to choose the time to come back to the village, Jiraiya. Chapter 106 Forced to sign. Thank you for the compliment, Danzo. Jiraiya put aside his complaints about Mingshan and stopped laughing. Are you going to use the power of so many roots to deal with a mere genin? His face was full of teasing. Oh, I just want to scare him. Danzo suddenly smiled and said, Mingshan. A delicate cry came from the toad's head. Mingshan raised his head and looked up and suddenly saw Hotaru and Kimimaro standing side by side. Boom, boom. The two jumped down from the toad's head at the same time and ran straight to Mingshan after landing. Girl, Kimimaro. Mingshan circled around him to check. Are you okay? I'm fine. Danzo used an illusion to control my consciousness last night. Kimimaro shook his head. He just took me to the root headquarters, but he didn't do anything to me. HMPH, Jiraiya, you went to the root to take people without my permission. After seeing Kimimaro show up, Danzo said to Jiraiya with great dissatisfaction, don't you take me seriously? Oh, I dare not. Jiraiya waved his hand and said, Lord Danzo misunderstood me. Taking out a letter from his arms, he asked Hotaru to hand it to Danzo. A letter? He took it from the little girl, unfolded it, and was surprised. This is it. It's the order of Lord Hokage. The wild girl stood in front of Danzo with her hands on her hips, looking up and said, "Today is an important festival in the village. You should think about it yourself." "How dare you, little brat, talk to Lord Danzo so arrogantly?" A ninja behind Danzo was angry and flashed in front of Aang just when he was about to take action. Swish, whoosh. Two black shadows blocked the two of them, like two iron towers standing apart. "You dare to touch her?" Mingshan said expressionlessly with the blade pointed at the ninja, and Kimimaro did not hesitate to pull out the bone knife from his hand. Retreat. Danzo ordered slowly. Yes. The ninja retreated as ordered. "All of you retreat, and continue to perform your respective tasks," Danzo said to them in a calm tone. "Yes." Swish. The many people who had surrounded Mingshan disappeared without a trace in an instant. It was really an extremely efficient implementation of Danzo's instructions. "I have something else to do, and need to leave the Land of Fire. I'm sorry I can't keep you company, Jiraiya," Danzo said and turned back. "I'm sorry I can't see you off, Danzo-sama." Jiraiya said goodbye to him insincerely. HMPH. Behind the back, that the others couldn't see, Danzo walked slowly forward, his eyes showing a sinister look. Mingshan saw that the matter had finally come to an end, and he sighed and complained, "It's really troublesome. I'm fighting hard with ninjas from other villages outside, and I have to worry about fighting with my own village when I come back. TSK, you're already annoying, kid. There's still a long way to go," Jiraiya said to him with a smile, cancelled the summoning. A puff of white smoke dissipated, and the toad disappeared. "Wow, this summoning technique is so impressive, Jiraiya-sama. You promised to teach me just now on the road." Hotaru ran up to him and said to Jiraiya, "Don't worry, since this sage girl, instead of learning that stuff, you might as well learn some useful water-style ninjutsu from the Hokage." Mingshan didn't let Jiraiya finish his boasting, so he interrupted him rudely and advised the girl, "After the busy Chunin exams during this period, TSK, kid, I've tolerated you for a long time." Being looked down upon by him, Jiraiya was about to pounce on him and teach him a lesson. Suddenly, a scroll flew towards Jiraiya. He subconsciously caught it and took a glance. It was written on it, Saint Maiden Monastery, and several eye-catching book titles. "Oh, Mingshan, why are you so polite, really?" Jiraiya's speed of changing his face can be called the first class in the ninja world, a typical textbook of being angry at first and then obedient. Alas, just for that kind of boring material, you don't even have integrity? Seeing Jiraiya's character, Kimimaro shook his head and sighed. His eyes did not hide his contempt for him. Unfortunately, the person in question was immersed in the joy of getting another good book and didn't care about these clouds at all. "Humph, I want to learn." The wild girl yelled at him in dissatisfaction. "Learning those water escape ninjutsu is not as fun as this." After a lot of chattering, Mingshan couldn't stand her barbaric demands and was forced to give in and agreed with a pinch of his nose. "Great." The girl clapped her hands happily and quickly pulled the corner of Jiraiya's clothes. "Come on, teach me how to summon spirits, Master Jiraiya." "Okay, learn it right away and teach you how to get started." Jiraiya smiled and put the scroll into his arms. "I'll demonstrate it once, watch carefully." He bit his thumb, bleeding on the palm of his hand, and quickly made a seal and shouted, "Summoning technique." He slapped his big hand on the ground. Bang! A burst of white smoke flashed, and a toad that was only much smaller than before appeared, holding a scroll in its mouth, and Jiraiya stood on it. "TSK, this is such a cool appearance, I never get tired of watching it." The girl looked up with envy, wishing she could stand on top like him. The toad stuck out his tongue and handed the scroll to Hotaru. "Open the scroll. This is the contract that we have signed with the toad for generations." Jiraiya instructed Hotaru step by step, saying, "Use your own blood to write your name on it." Hotaru followed his instructions and took out a kunai to cut her index finger, then dripped blood and dipped it into the blank space in the scroll to write her name. "Earth, spider spider, Hotaru." The girl silently wrote it word by word and finally used her index finger to dip the other fingers in blood in the remaining blank space below, opened her palm, and pressed the 5-finger blood print, and the contract was completed. Uzumaki Naruto, Namikaze Minato, Jiraiya. Mingshin came over, bored to death, and read out the names on the scroll one by one. Hey, Kit, why are you reading the names on it? Jiraiya looked at him in confusion. Oh, nothing. Mingshin yawned. Just what I thought. Same as what you thought. Jiraiya didn't understand what it meant. Look at the names on this scroll. They are all the same idiots. Mingshin continued to tease himself. Stupid people usually attract each other and gather together, just like this summoning. Before he finished his complaints, a small white hand had pinched his waist, and the voice was very gentle, floating into his ears. Really, it turns out that only those who learn Jiraiya's summoning technique are relatively stupid, and only then will they be interested in learning it. Mingshin immediately trembled all over, turned around and smiled, and complimented the wild girl behind him. How could it be? This summoning technique is pretty good. The desire to survive is very strong. The wild girl giggled and twisted the soft flesh on his waist. Write your name too, he said with a cold snort. Hiss. Mingshin was really grimacing in pain. Isn't it okay for me to write? He begged for mercy. Hurry up. Let go, girl. HMPH. After hearing this satisfactory answer, Aang let go of her hand and let him go. Chapter 107 Toad. Ah, Kit, you have come to this day. Jiraiya was also gloating. Since dealing with Mingshin, he has always been suppressed by him. It's such Igumo Hotaru finally let him vent his anger. TSK. Mingshin, with a heart full of reluctance, still reluctantly signed his name under the supervision of the wild girl's death gaze. Okay, it's all done now. The girl was happy. Well, now each of you find an open space where you want to summon it and concentrate your chakra. Jiraiya stopped laughing, put away the scroll, and continued to give serious instructions. After you make a seal, use the hand that signed the contract to slap the ground. That's it. Okay. Hotaru ran away first and found an open space not far from the crowd to stand. The seals are Hei, Zu, Yu, Shen, Wei. Jiraiya came down from the toad. You try it. The wild girl nodded and followed the instructions, sealing the seals according to the steps. Hei, Zu, Yu, Shen, Wei. Finally, he shouted, ninjutsu, summoning technique, and slapped the ground. Bang. The white smoke dissipated, and a toad of medium size appeared. It was green all over, and there was a big red bow tied on its back. It's been a long time since I came out. The toad fluttered its big eyes, and its two large thick lips were painted with bright lipstick, opening and closing lazily to Aang. Hey, little sister, did you summon me? Aang was a little unresponsive. You, who are you? Hate, you summoned me, and you still ask who I am? The toad said, and actually covered his face shyly. Seeing it like this, Aang's face was very interesting, and it was a bit funny. Hey, Toad Power, long time no see. Jiraiya walked over to greet the other party enthusiastically after seeing it. Oh, it's little Jiraiya. The toad turned around and saw him, and responded happily. Why are you here? Well, I'm teaching students how to use summoning. Jiraiya told Gamali that he was teaching ninjutsu, and then gave a thumbs up to Hotaru, praising him. You can perfectly summon a powerful toad for the first time. You are great, Hotaru. Hey, why can't I be happy at all when I hear Jiraiya-sama's praise? Hotaru was quite speechless, twitching her mouth and sighing. Forget it, the summon has been summoned. After calming down, she asked Jiraiya-sama, what do we need to do next? Ask Gamali if he is willing to sign a contract with you. Jiraiya taught her. Okay. Hotaru did as he was told. Then, that Mr. Gamali. Oh, what Mr. Just call me sister. Gamali was very generous and asked her to change the name. The girl was stunned, then nodded awkwardly and said, Gamali, sister, are you willing to sign a contract with me? It's such Igumo Hotaru. Oh, do you even need to ask? I'm very willing. After saying that, Gamali wanted to pounce on the delicate little girl and pretend to hug her, which scared the girl so much that she quickly ran behind Jiraiya to hide. Hey, don't scare me, Gamali, sign the contract quickly. Jiraiya helped Hotaru out of the siege and then asked his own toad standing in the distance to take out another scroll and unfold it. Gamali wrote in the same way as Hotaru before, and the operation was quite skillful. He quickly pressed the seal and finished it. Snap, the scroll was recovered, and Jiraiya said to Hotaru, "Little girl, the contract between you has been reached. From now on, you can summon Gamali anywhere. Please take care of me in the future, Sister Hotaru." Gamali took the girl's hand and said, I'm here." The girl smiled awkwardly but politely. "Sister Aang, if there is nothing else, I will go back first." Toad Power smiled charmingly, and before leaving, he did not forget to throw her a wink, and then disappeared with a bang. Hiss. Waves of shaking inhalation sounded one after another. Aang and Mingxian, who was standing in the distance and watching, both had goosebumps all over the ground. "It's finally gone." Aang shook her head and sighed, and walked back to Kimimaro and the others. "Mingxian, it's your turn." The girl gave him orders in a bad mood as soon as she came back. He was a little unresponsive. "Well, she wants you to perform the psychic technique once." Kimimaro reminded him. "I don't need it, right?" Mingxian's mouth twitched, still very resistant. "Anyway, I've already signed it. I can use it later." "How can that be?" Jiraiya refused to do it, and walked over and said, "You've already signed it, so hurry up and summon the spirit." He wanted to make a few more excuses, but when Mingxian saw Aang looking at him with a bad face, he estimated that, if he continued to argue, she might turn the gun and take it out on him, which would be terrible. He immediately formed a seal with his hands and shouted, "Ninjutsu, summoning technique," and slapped the ground. Bang. Boom. White smoke gushed out, and there was a shaking and vibration on the ground. When it all dispersed, everyone exclaimed, "No way." Aang looked up in disbelief, and her mouth pouted with anger. "Damn it." Kimimaro smiled faintly, and said to himself, "You did a good job, Mingxian. I'm happy for him. This is." Jiraiya looked at the huge creature in front of him in surprise, and couldn't help but complain about him. "I didn't expect that this kid would summon it the first time. Hey, why are they all smaller?" Mingxian was confused, and his feet suddenly shook slightly. He cried out, and adjusted his balance in time. "No, I was lifted up." "Hey, buddy, don't shake it. You almost made me fall down." Mingxian complained loudly at his feet. "Oh, sorry, I'm useless." After hearing Mingxian's complaint, the toad nodded politely to apologize. After glancing at a familiar figure among the crowd, he took the initiative to say, "Jiraiya, long time no see." "Oh, it's Gamaitan." Jiraiya responded politely. "Gamaitan?" Mingxian muttered, jumped down from his head, and looked at it for a long time. "Did you summon me?" Gamaitan asked politely with his head down, and introduced himself solemnly. "Nice to meet you. My name is Gamaitan." "You're welcome." Mingxian scratched his head, and tried to greet him. Brother Ken, my name is Ito Mingxian. Please take care of me." "TSK, so hypocritical. You're not even so polite to this immortal." Jiraiya curled his lips in disdain and muttered, "How can this kid be so lucky that he didn't summon the hot-tempered bunter?" "Brother Ken." Gamaitan was stunned, obviously not used to the new name, and shook his head. "I don't deserve it. I'm a crude person and I don't deserve you to call me that." No, it's me." "Hey." Aang was so angry that she couldn't bear it anymore, and kicked him hard, interrupted him rudely. "Are you done with wasting time? Sign the contract quickly." "TSK, you summoned that thing yourself." Mingxian rubbed his leg that was kicked and muttered quietly, turning his head away, "How dare you take it out on me?" Aang seemed to sense something, and smiled at him grimly. "What are you mumbling about?" Chapter 108 Before the race. No. Mingxian shook his head repeatedly to indicate that he had not. "Well, that giant brother, if you don't mind, please sign a contract with me." After that, he bowed solemnly and entrusted, Please lend me a helping hand in the future. Mr. Mingxian is too polite to take a liking to a humble person like me." Feeling such a solemn entrustment request, the huge body of the toad giant nodded slightly to Mingxian and said modestly, "I'm willing to serve you like a dog or a horse, and be at your disposal." The man and the toad almost burst out with a feeling of regretting that they had met too late, and the more they spoke, the more classical Chinese they spoke. TSK. TSK. Hotaru and Jiraiya both despised their pretentious performance, and they almost vomited after hearing it. Well, that's enough. Both of you should be quiet. Kimimaro finally couldn't help but speak, interrupting the endless pleasantries between the man and the toad. Gamaitan, sign the contract quickly. We still have to hurry back to the village. Mingshan blushed for the first time and felt that he was too pretentious, so he stopped singing with Gamaitan and continued to talk nonsense. Kimimaro said to Jiraiya, Master Jiraiya, the scroll. Here it is. Nodding in understanding, his toad threw out the scroll again and spread it on the ground. Gamaitan, you sign it. Okay, I'll write it right away. Gamaitan put down the shield and Zen stick in his hand, quickly signed his name, and honestly pressed the claw mark. Then, Master Mingshan, I'll take my leave first. If you need anything, you can summon me at any time. Okay. Mingshan nodded. Bang, a puff of white smoke dissipated, and Gamaitan disappeared. Humph. The wild girl suddenly turned her face to Mingshan. Mingshan was confused and asked her, what's wrong, young lady? Nothing. Let's go back. Kimimaro brother. Hotaru took Kimimaro's hand and said to herself, let's go back, Mingshan. Kimimaro let her lead him away, smiled bitterly and shook his head, signaling Mingshan with his eyes to be more accommodating to the girl. Well, you go ahead. Tsunade will probably be at our house soon. I will follow. Mingshan let the two go back. Now no one should dare to target them anymore. After they walked away, Jiraiya whispered in Mingshan's ear in a lewd way, hey, the little girl must be sulking because she saw you summon a toad that's more majestic than her. TSK, is that so? That's your fault. Mingshan glared back at him. Why teach me summoning? I was forced to sign this damn summoning contract by a little girl. I'm so unlucky. Hey, have some conscience when you speak. She insisted on learning it herself. It's none of my business. Jiraiya quickly shirked responsibility and refused to take the blame. Come on, I won't talk nonsense with you. Mingshan looked up at the sky, covered by the bamboo forest, then looked away and asked, what time is it now? I don't have a watch, but the main competition should be about to start. Jiraiya pondered. Okay, I'm leaving. Mingshan waved goodbye to him and turned around. Hey, kid. Jiraiya called him. What? Mingshan glanced at him sideways. You haven't even looked at the monastery yet. Are you trying to dig new materials from me again? Well, I do. Jiraiya coughed dryly. I want to ask you something serious. Are you trying to ask me about wood release? Mingshan also restrained his nonchalant attitude. Yes, that's right. I got this bloodline limit ability by chance, and Hokage-sama knows it. I don't have any chakra attributes myself. Hokage-sama once tested it for me with chakra test paper. Then, even I still have a half understanding of the ability of wood release. Although Hokage-sama gave me a wood release scroll with detailed records, I haven't fully mastered it. The first generation. Because there are still quite a few wood release ninjutsu that don't have specific training methods in the scroll. They are just names. You kid, is it difficult for me to ask a complete question? Jiraiya was really going to be furious at Mingshan. Hey, you better go look at the materials and get some inspiration. Bye. Mingshan didn't bother to care about him. He waved to Jiraiya with his back. In the blink of an eye, he walked away and disappeared into the bamboo forest. TSK, this brat. On the busy streets of Konoha, Naruto, who was so nervous that he didn't sleep all night, was carrying a bag and walking slowly with his head down, lost in thought. The first battle starts with Hyuga Niji. Yeah, it's the first battle of last year's #1 rookie, we can't miss it. Hyuga, Ninji. Naruto, who was standing next to a passerby and inadvertently heard the conversation, frowned at first and then suddenly laughed to himself. Now I can also summon a super giant toad. It's okay. But as he laughed, he couldn't laugh anymore and felt depressed. TSK, why do everyone's eyes are so annoying? Naruto? Naruto heard the voice, turned around and looked behind him and said in surprise, Hotsuga, Kimimaro, why are you here? We just came back from doing some business outside the village. Kimimaro said half truthfully. Hotaru looked at him in confusion, but saw him shaking his head to signal her not to speak. Seeing this, the girl had to shut up obediently. Kimimaro asked Naruto, "Isn't the main competition about to start? Why are you still here?" "Oh, I'm going to a good place first, and then." Naruto pretended to be mysterious and said to the two of them, "When the time is almost up, we will rush all the way there." "Oh, sorry, Naruto, we have something to do, so we'll leave first." Worried that Tsunade would wait too long at home, Hotaru took Kimimaro's hand and said, "Kimimaro brother, let's go." "Yeah, it's okay," Naruto said to the two people who passed by. "See you later, Kimimaro, Hotaru." Hearing this, Kimimaro nodded and said to Naruto, "I wish you a successful first exam when the time comes." After walking out of the bamboo forest, Mingshin was on his way to return to the village directly when he ran into an ANBU ninja who seemed to be waiting for him. Could it be? He was unsure, and after guessing who it was, he slowed down and walked towards the other person. "Mingshin." A very familiar voice came into his ears, and he thought to himself, it was indeed the person he was most reluctant to face. "Xian, sister," Mingshin said with difficulty, and then turned his face away. His heart seemed to be blocked by a huge rock, and he could hardly breathe. The ninja took off his mask and looked at him calmly. "Why, you have become so unfamiliar with me after just a while, Mingshin? Is it difficult to ask you to speak?" In the silence, he never responded to her directly. Xian slowly approached Mingshin and slapped him in the face without any warning. "Don't be like this, okay?" Xian hugged him very sadly. "You are just a 14-year-old boy. I'm sorry." Mingshin's face did not show any pain, but his hands were clenched very tightly, and his nails dug into the flesh unconsciously. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 109 Relief. Hei's death has nothing to do with you. Xian let go of him and forced herself to hold back her sadness, keeping the tears in her eyes. If he knew about this and saw you like this, he would only be more disappointed. "I know." There was the same sadness in his eyes as Xian's. He closed his eyes and stepped back. "But I can never forgive myself that night for not being able to do it earlier." Morning. This is the fate of a ninja. Xian wiped the tears from her eyes and said to him, "To be honest, I can't do it myself. I can't be indifferent to life and death and forget about Height like a real ninja." Xian put on the mask again. "It's just that, if we keep immersing ourselves in sadness, we will never be able to move forward." She took something out of her arms and handed it to him. "You once told Height that there were many promises you wanted to fulfill, right? This is it." Mingshin reached out to take it, opened it and took a look, but tears couldn't help but slide down his eyes and ripped onto a piece of glass. It was a group photo of several people taken with Xian and Height at the birthday party. "Height has always told me that he is most grateful for meeting you in the ninja school." Xian put her hand on his head. "So, let go of this guilt, Mingshin. This is not something you should bear." After a long time, Mingshin was choked with sobs and just bowed deeply to Xian. "Thank you, Sister Xian. Height's name has been engraved on the memorial tablet. When you are free, you can take Hotaru and Kimimaro to see it together." Xian turned around. "I want to take them to see it after the Chunin exam is over, because I haven't found a chance to tell Hotaru and Kimimaro." Mingshin was interrupted by Xian when he was halfway through his words. In fact, they already knew about Height's death the day before yesterday. Xian looked up at the white clouds in the sky. "That day, I was going to go against the order of the Hokage and come to your house to tell them in person, but I didn't expect that Kimimaro had already guessed it." Hearing Xian say this, Mingshin spread out his bleeding hands. "Kimimaro and the others, have they known it?" "That's right, they didn't resent your powerlessness, but for you, they all pretended to know nothing." Xian retracted her gaze. "You are all too kind and gentle, and you consider each other in everything." The look in her eyes looking at Mingshin through the mask was very deep. "I don't have a chance anymore, so please cherish them, Mingshin." After saying that, Xian disappeared in an instant, leaving only these words echoing in the original place. Mingshan said nothing, but bowed deeply in the direction she left. The third game of the Chunin exam. The audience seats were full of spectators early in the morning, waiting for the game to start. Mr. Kazukic, long time no see. The third Hokage, sitting in the middle of the stands, greeted the fourth Kazukic who was walking over from the other side. How are you, Mr. Hokage? The man walked to the seat next to the third Hokage and sat down. It seems that the next game has not started yet. There is still about half an hour. A scarred ninja standing behind the third Hokage took the initiative to explain to the fourth Kazukic. Oh, it's such a long wait. The fourth Kazukic closed his eyes and said. Hearing this, the third Hokage took the initiative to talk to change the subject. By the way, Mr. Kazukic, this year's new Sand Ninja. Tomorrow, after Xian left, he would put his mood in order and rush all the way back to Konoha village. After a while, he came to the gate. Bang, bang, bang. From a distance through the gate, he could see the opening ceremony fireworks blooming above the venue. Hey, is it about to start? Mingshan raised his eyelids. Unfortunately, I have to rush back home, and don't have time to watch the third exam match. Mingshan stepped into the street from the gate, and happened to see a farce. Naruto? Dust was flying, and the yellow-haired man was screaming and running on the busy street, being chased by a large group of excited bulls behind him. Hey, the one leading the way seems to be a bull used by the daimyo. What's going on? Mingshan didn't understand how Naruto got chased by these bulls. Forget it, look at the direction he is running. It's exactly where the exam venue is. He wanted to rescue this guy, but thinking that he could take advantage of the bull's chase to rush directly to the competition site, he didn't stop him and walked to another street, avoiding the bulls and returning home. Walking on another street, Mingshan met a few members who seemed to be members of Konoha's ANBU. They walked towards each other and suddenly, Mingshan was startled and stopped. He seemed to sense something and looked back, but he didn't see the figures of the ANBU ninjas. Am I overthinking? In the main competition venue. Hey, there are quite a few people missing. Shikamaru looked around and found that there were still 3 candidates who hadn't come. He thought to himself, Naruto, Sasuke, and Anvil, what are they doing? What's going on? It's about to start. Ino was sitting in the stands, complaining that the candidates hadn't arrived yet. What's going on? Sasuke hasn't come yet. The competition is about to start. Sakura, who was sitting next to Ino, also thought to herself, and even Naruto was not seen. Neji glanced around and thought to himself, the last one and the Uchiha haven't come yet. Naruto, Sasuke, come here quickly. Zyoli clenched his fist. Temari suddenly listened carefully and noticed a voice floating from the entrance of the exam. Wahaha. Naruto was seen flying with his butt sticking out, screaming all the way, and fell straight to the ground like a dog chewing shit, sliding in front of everyone in the center of the venue. TSK, this kid. Kankuro looked at him, as if he was an idiot. PFFT, haha. Who is this? Such a funny appearance. The spectators in the stands, who saw this scene couldn't help but laugh at him. Hey, this guy, what kind of entrance is this? Shikamaru walked over helplessly and helped him up from the ground. What a trouble. On time. Sakura was relieved to see Naruto arrive on time. He just happened to be not late. Ino was speechless. Hey. Naruto was dizzy and was helped up by Shikamaru. He shook his head and suddenly woke up and shouted, everyone run. A group of mad cows are rushing towards the village. Huh. Shikamaru looked at him speechlessly. What are you talking about? I'm telling the truth. Naruto said anxiously. There are a lot of. He stopped talking halfway because the yellow-haired man noticed that there was suddenly silence around him. Except for Gaara, other candidates and examiners all turned their eyes to him. Chapter 110. Shiranagenma. Naruto turned his head and looked around. Hey, where's Sasuke? He looked around for several times, but couldn't find any trace of him. Dos, who was fighting me, didn't come here either. Zyoli came over and said to Naruto, okay, you guys, stop wandering around and chatting. Come over and stand up. The examiner looked at Naruto and the others. Stand up straight and face the audience. Huh. Naruto heard it, then raised his head, looked up, and quickly stood side by side with Shikamaru and the others. You are the protagonists of this competition. After that, the examiner waited for the third Hokage to come out and give a speech and an opening speech. Sasuke hasn't shown up yet. The third Hokage looked at the candidates below and thought, could it be Hokage-sama? The fourth Kazekage interrupted his thoughts. Can we start now? Yes, we can start. The third Hokage came back to his senses, stood up from his seat, walked a few steps forward to face the audience and candidates, and opened the show. Dear guests, I would like to express my sincere gratitude for coming to Konoha to watch the Chunin selection exam. The third Hokage glanced at the genin standing side by side in a row. Next, let the 10 candidates who passed the preliminaries participate in the official selection competition. Please look forward to it. After speaking, the staff below began to get busy. For 10 candidates, the fourth Kazekage asked the third Hokage, it seems that there are still 2 missing. The third Hokage did not answer the Kazekige's question, but just looked down. Before your competition begins, I want to say a few words. The examiner, holding a senbon in his mouth, looked around at the candidates and said, my name is Shirona Genma, and I'm the chief examiner for the third exam. As he spoke, he took out a battle list from his arms and gestured, look at this. Everyone's eyes were all on the battle list. Genma said, please confirm your opponent again. All the candidates did not raise any opinions, and suddenly, I say, Naruto raised his hand to speak to the examiner. What do you want to say? Genma asked him. Well, there are still 2 candidates who haven't come yet. What should we do? Naruto asked. If they haven't shown up when it's their turn to compete, Genma raised the senbon in his mouth, then treat them as defeated without a fight and forfeit. After hearing the examiner's answer, Naruto looked towards the entrance and thought to himself, this is too strange. According to that guy's personality, he would grit his teeth and come to participate, even if he dragged his body covered in wounds. Gaara, who was standing next to Neji, stared at the open space in front of him with an expressionless face. He pondered for a while, and suddenly seemed to think of something, and shook his hands. No way, I've repeatedly told him not to attract attention. Maki sat on the stands, worried that his plan would be ruined by Gaara. He wouldn't want to kill Sasuke at the competition site, would he? Listen carefully, all of you. Zuanjian briefly explained the rules. Although the venue is different, it's the same as the preliminaries. The rules are that there are no rules. The duel will be decided until one side dies or admits defeat. Finally, he added, however, if I think the winner has been decided, I will stop the game in advance, and you won't be allowed to protest. Do you understand? All the candidates nodded silently in agreement. Then, the 2 sides of the first round are Uzumaki Naruto and Hyuga Neji. These 2 will stay, and the rest of you please go back to the lounge to watch the game. Zuanjian asked the other candidates to leave and prepare for the official competition. Hey, Hinata, there's an empty seat here. Kiba found a very good seat in the audience and said to Hinata who was walking behind him. Yeah. Hinata took a seat with Kiba. Oh, it's really worth seeing. Kiba just sat down and said with expectation as he looked down. Naruto. Hinata cheered for him silently in her heart. I never thought that Brad could hold on until now. Gang Zetsu and Kamatsuki Izumo, who were sitting next to her, started to discuss heatedly before the game started. Well, but if he just relies on luck to get through, he will be finished. That guy called Naruto. The opponent is too strong. No matter what, he can't beat the Hyuga clan. The 2 were not optimistic about Naruto and made pessimistic predictions. Hinata was quite indignant listening to them, but she couldn't refute their words. Kiba, who was sitting next to Hinata, didn't think so. She thought to herself, I thought so, before in the preliminaries. Haha, if you underestimate him, you will be surprised, everyone. Woo. Ha. Kiba heard the voice, and turned to look at Akamaru who was lying on his shoulder. What's wrong, Akamaru? Akamaru whimpered a few times. What did you say? After hearing this, Kiba's face became serious, and his eyes kept scanning the surroundings. Where? Suddenly, he saw the masked man in the robe in the corner behind the station. Found it. Why is the ANBU here? He speculated secretly. Did something happen? After thinking for a long time, Kiba still couldn't find any suitable answer, so he simply stopped thinking about it and paid close attention to the situation below. At this time, the two people in the field were confronting each other. It seems that you have something to say. Niji took the initiative to speak to him. Naruto stretched out a hand and clenched his fist to him. I have said it before, I will definitely defeat you in this game. Hearing this, Niji closed his eyes and took a deep breath. When he opened his eyes again, he had already opened his Byakugan. Your eyes are very confident, and you are not showing off at all. After making a judgment in his heart, Niji sneered at him and said, Humph, this is worth fighting. I really want to see the panicked look in your eyes when you face reality. Stop talking so much, hurry up, let's start. Naruto retracted his fist and shouted. The wind started to blow, and Konoha swirled around the two of them. Then, the first round begins. Just as the game was getting hot, Mingxin was walking on his way back and unexpectedly encountered two familiar figures that he hadn't seen for a long time. Hey, could it be old man Guji and Asami? He tried to shout loudly to the two people walking in front. The old man and the young man turned around to check after hearing the shouting and found that it was Mingxin who was shouting, and the two turned around and walked back together. Hey, I remember now. You are the seaweed-headed brother I met in front of Grandpa's tombstone that day, Asami said happily and asked him, how do you know my name? Your grandpa told me, Mingxin said with a smile and greeted Guji by the way. Long time no see, old man. Oh, it's been a while since I saw you come to the back mountain. Guji was still the same, chatting with him with a smile. Where are you going? Mingxin asked them. Chapter 111 The Late 2. I'm going to the street to buy something, and Grandpa Guji is going to look for someone. Asami, the girl, took the initiative to speak to Mingxin before Guji opened his mouth. Oh, that's about it. Guji then asked him, Mingxin, why don't you go to the venue to watch the game, but show up here? I have something to do, and I don't have time to watch. Mingxin smiled bitterly. By the way, old man, who are you going to look for? Hokage-sama. Guji told Mingxin about what he met with the third Hokage last night. On a starry night, in an open space in the dense forest behind the mountain of Konoha. Guji set up an iron pot to cook, and the dead branches and leaves burned fiercely to cook the thick soup inside, and the aroma was overflowing. It smells so good, Guji. A voice came from the silent forest. Guji raised his head. Did I disturb you? The third Hokage slowly walked out from under the dark tree and came to the fire. How could that be? If you don't mind, please try what I, an old man, cook, Hokage. Guji said politely to the third Hokage. Excuse me for bothering you then. After that, he sat down next to Guji. Tomorrow is the official competition for the Chunin exam. Guji picked up a bowl and scooped soup for him. Yeah, that's right. The third Hokage sighed. Time flies so fast. He took the steaming hot soup from Guji. After blowing off the heat, the third Hokage took a sip and praised, it tastes so good. Hearing the third Hokage's praise, Guji smiled modestly. I'm ashamed. I can only cook now. What are you talking about? The third Hokage shook his head. During the mission outside, the only pleasure is eating. He continued to take a sip. There are many people in the village who specifically asked you to join the team. No matter how dangerous the mission is, as long as you accept the commission, I will do it without hesitation. Guji said to the third Hokage with a serious expression. After hearing what he said, the third Hokage put down the bowl of soup he had finished drinking and gently rebuked. Don't take your life so lightly. After that, he stood up and said, thank you for the hospitality. This soup is very delicious. He just took 2 steps and thought of something. Oh, by the way, Guji. Turning to him, he said, can I ask you to carry out a task? Guji looked at the third Hokage. Although the Chunin exam is a good opportunity to observe whether the strength of each village is balanced or not, there will be more or less ninjas from other villages doing small things behind the scenes. The third Hokage looked up at the starry sky, but this time, I'm a little uneasy. Well, it may be that I think too much. The two looked at each other. After talking about what happened last night, just when they were about to say something else about tomorrow, Asami suddenly pulled the corner of Guji's clothes twice, and they both turned their eyes to look over. Grandpa Guji, that, not far ahead, is the store where my mother asked me to go shopping. Asami left the two of them, walked in front of them and waved, I'll go first, goodbye, seaweed head brother. After saying that, he ran away from their sight. This child is just like Leo Chen, doing things in a hurry. Guji looked at the direction she left, and sighed with a smile. Old man, it's almost time for me to leave. Mingshan said, I'll take time to visit you by the river behind the mountain another day, and we can have a good chat. Yeah, okay. Guji nodded. Go, Mingshan. After the two said goodbye to each other, they left and went about their business. After crossing the long street and rushing back home, Mingshan saw Kimimaro and Hotaru sitting in the hall chatting. As soon as he opened the door, where's Tsunade? Mingshan asked the two of them as soon as he entered the door. Tsunade-sama and Shizune left for a while and said that they would arrange the surgery at Konoha Hospital. Kimimaro closed the book in his hand and answered him. Surgery? Mingshan was stunned. Tsunade-sama said that according to the collected data, Kimimaro's illness must be completely cured by surgery. Hotaru took over and said, is that so? Mingshan nodded. Although he was worried about whether the surgery was too risky, he had no other choice now and could only trust Tsunade's medical skills. Probably in the next few days, the time for surgery will be arranged, Kimimaro said, and suddenly he started coughing again. You cough a lot more frequently now than before. Mingshan walked over and patted his back while speaking. It's okay, Mingshan, Kimimaro said to him calmly. How could it be? The girl wanted to refute his words, but Mingshan shook her head to stop her. Girl, help go into the room and clean up. Okay. Mingshan and Hotaru accompanied Kimimaro into the bedroom. After a long time, the two came out. Girl, you should go and rest too. You have been taking care of Kimimaro since you came back from the bamboo forest. Mingshan rubbed her head. What about you? The girl looked at him. I'm going to Konoha Hospital to find Tsunade. Mingshan took his hand away from her head. Oh, go early and come back early. I'll sleep in the hall for a while. The girl rubbed her eyes. Anyway, Tonbei is not at home. Okay. Mingshan washed his face and went out again. Naruto should be fighting hard with Hyuga Niji now. Mingshan looked at the houses on both sides of the road and was thinking. Mingshan? A voice suddenly sounded in front of him on the empty street. He turned his head and saw that it was Sasuke and Kakashi standing there. Why are you here? He asked in surprise. Well, I encountered a lot of unexpected things, so I was delayed. Kakashi scratched his head and explained to him, holding the intimate paradise in his other hand. Why didn't you go to watch the game? I didn't have time to watch it. I was busy with other things. He looked at Sasuke. Your game is behind Naruto's group. It seems to be starting soon. Can you make it? No problem. Sasuke replied calmly, staring at him and said, tomorrow, after this exam is over. After the exam is over? Tomorrow didn't understand what he wanted to say. I want to fight you fair and square once. Sasuke said very seriously. With me? Tomorrow looked at Sasuke, smiled bitterly and said, forget it. Kakashi was not surprised to see his reaction. Tomorrow passed by Kakashi and Sasuke without saying much, just left him a word of encouragement. Good luck in the exam, Sasuke. He walked away. Does tomorrow look down on my strength? Sasuke said coldly to himself. No. Kakashi didn't think so. He's just used to being lazy like this. Let's go, Kakashi. Sasuke closed his eyes and stopped thinking about it, urging him to hurry up. Yeah. Kakashi nodded and put away the intimate paradise in his hand. It's time to speed up. Chapter 112 Hokage's Secret Order. In a dark and damp cave somewhere on the outskirts of Konoha village, Danzo-sama, a masked ninja wrapped up tightly, half knelt on the ground and reported to Danzo, who had his back to him. Oh, has sent people to sneak out of the Valley of the End and go back to the Land of Earth to spread the news. After listening to the report, Danzo turned around and asked briefly and coldly, thank you for your hard work. Do the last group of people outside the village need to evacuate now? The masked ninja respectfully asked for the next order. No need to leave now. Pass the order and let them hide in the village and observe secretly. He said slowly. Yes. The masked ninja disappeared in an instant. Danzo stroked his cane and looked into the distance quietly. A slight madness suddenly flashed in his single eye, and he whispered, Hiruzen. Konoha Hospital, outpatient department. Then, at Tsunade-sama, the plan is decided. Miss Shizune will be in charge of the operation at that time. The doctor said respectfully to Tsunade-sama, who was sitting opposite him. Well, I will bring someone here in 2 days. Tsunade stood up and said goodbye to Shizune. The doctor hurriedly stood up to see them off and only returned to work after sending them out of the hospital building. Okay, it's done. Let's go have a drink and relax. As soon as Tsunade came out, she stretched out her true colors. After hearing this, Shizune said with a headache, Sir Tsunade, shouldn't we rush back and tell them right away? Hey, there's no rush at this moment. Anyway, Tsunade was only halfway through her words. Cough. Yeah. Tsunade immediately turned around alertly and said sternly, yes. After seeing someone clearly, her face changed quickly, and she raised her eyebrows and scolded, why are you coughing silently behind our backs? TSK, you. Mingshin felt angry and amused, and was about to refute her. What are you talking about? Really, I wanted to rush back with Shizune to tell you the good news. The surgery is scheduled to start in 2 days. Tsunade scolded him bitterly, I didn't expect you to be so ignorant. You are such an ungrateful person. I'm so disappointed. Mingshin and Shizune's eyebrows kept jumping subconsciously. Seeing that Tsunade was like a drama spirit, she spoke so clearly, and they couldn't help but complain in their hearts. You said it so clearly that I almost believed it. Seeing that she seemed to be going to continue acting, Mingshin quickly coughed heavily and glared speechlessly. Cough, that's enough, don't talk too much. Seeing him like this, Tsunade stopped the performance. Under Mingshin's expressionless supervision, she went back with him honestly, and didn't dare to mention drinking in front of this kid again. In a cave somewhere, several holographic colorful black shadows flashed and gathered around the campfire, but this time, there were 2 more entities on the scene, and the real bodies were Archer Hiratachi and Hishigaki Kisame. Recently, a ninja village called Atogakure was born. Orochimaru may have something to do with the establishment of this village. The purple circled eyes said to everyone. That bastard. One of the colorful black shadows cursed. Go and investigate the intelligence secretly. The purple circled eyes looked at the cursing black shadow and ordered. TSK, Orochimaru is the best at doing things behind the scenes. The short black shadow partner beside him said disdainfully. HMPH, let's see how I can find him out and use explosions to present fleeting aesthetics. The black shadow excitedly planned and designed the final death of Orochimaru before he started the investigation. TSK, I said it was a secret investigation. The short black shadow shook his head and was quite speechless about his simple-minded partner. After the 2 of them took on this task, the purple circled eyes continued to speak. Well, let's continue to assign other commissioned tasks. The sun was shining in the sky, and Mingshin and Tsunade left Konoha Hospital. The 3 of them walked all the way to the street near the Chunin exam venue. Mingshin could see an old man with an iron pot on his back from a distance. Is that old man Guji? Mingshin said uncertainly. Guji. Tsunade paused after hearing this, stopped to think, and then suddenly realized, oh, it's him. You know him too? Mingshin looked at her in surprise. I know him. I have carried out several missions with him before. Tsunade said to him breathlessly. Why, is it strange? No. Mingshin pondered for a moment. I'll go over there. Hurry up. Tsunade said to Shizune. Let's go to this store and sit for a while. She pointed to the side. Okay, Tsunade-sama. Shizune hugged Hunton and followed her into the store to rest for a while. Mingshin walked up to them and saw clearly that Guji was talking to several parents of the 10th class. He thought to himself, hey, Uncle Shikaku, Uncle Choza, Uncle Heiai, what are they discussing? Just then. Hey, you said this is a secret order from the Hokage-sama? Akimichi Choza suddenly shouted in surprise. Dingzo. Heiai immediately stopped him from making any more noise. You're too loud. Shikaku also sternly reprimanded him. No, it's bad manners. Dingzo quickly covered his mouth, looked around to see if passers-by heard him, and suddenly saw, His eyes looked into the distance. He saw someone coming over behind Guji, and took a closer look. Mingshin, Heiai and Shikaku heard this, and turned their eyes together. Hey, Uncle Shikaku, Uncle Dingzo, Uncle Heiai, long time no see. Mingshan took the initiative to greet the adults. Mingshan, why are you here? Didn't you go to watch the game? Shikaku asked. Something happened at home, so I didn't have time to watch the game. Mingshan smiled and gestured to Guji, and continued to explain, I saw old man Guji here, so I walked over to say hello to him, and then I saw you. Is that so? Heiai suddenly realized, and then continued to ask Guji directly, so, what did the Hokage say? Don't mind Mingshan listening on the side. It's too early for Konoha to fly. He said that, if I tell you this, you will understand. Guji truthfully conveyed the meaning of the third Hokage. Hokage-sama, you should ask them to mobilize the ninjas in the village to jointly guard against any unexpected actions of enemy ninjas during the Konoha exam. Mingshan secretly guessed. We have received the secret order from Hokage-sama. Shikaku said with a solemn expression. After the three of them looked at each other, they nodded to each other, and with a swish, they jumped twice and disappeared. Is this a special code between the Sarutobi clan and their three families? Guji thought to himself, raised his eyes, and saw Mingshan, who was looking at him, and smiled and said, Mingshan, are you done with your work so quickly? Yes, it's all done. Mingshan said with a smile, a friend of mine has arranged everything. Just as Guji was about to say a few more words to Mingshan, he suddenly sensed something, opened his eyes wide and turned around, shocked in his heart. No way. Thanks to Brother Levi for today's recommendation vote. Chapter 113, Shocking Crisis. Boom. A series of violent explosions rumbled from the roofs of houses. What's going on? Run. Oh my god, is the village attacked by the enemy? The streets were in chaos. Mingshan stood beside Guji, watching the panicked ordinary villagers running around. He knew what was going on, and was secretly angry. TSK, they still started it. His eyes were filled with murderous intent. Countless Sand Village and Sound Village ninjas invaded Konoha village from all directions. The security forces guarding the periphery of the village were killed one by one. Bang! A mother and daughter were squeezed apart by the panicked crowd. When the two gathered together again, a sand ninja holding a ninja sword had already approached them. Hey! The sand ninja swung his sword and slashed at them fiercely. Mom! The little girl shouted desperately to her mother, just when the mother and daughter could only hug each other and close their eyes to wait for death. Puff, sizzle. HMM. The sand ninja lowered his eyes in disbelief and saw a sharp blade easily pierce his throat and then pulled out. Clang, the weapon in his hand fell to the ground crisply. His face twisted in pain. He covered his neck tightly and fell to his knees, blood flowing freely. You guys go to shelter quickly. Mingshan shook off the blood on the blade and said to them. The mother and daughter nodded to Mingshan, who had survived the disaster. Thank you. Then, they ran into the crowd in a panic and fled together. Whoosh, whoosh. There was a sound of breaking wind from his ears. Be careful, Mingshan. Guji's anxious shout sounded in his ears. Ding, ding. Mingshan easily knocked down the shuriken that attacked him and said, Old man, go and reinforce other weak places that have been invaded. Mingshan turned to Guji and said loudly, it's enough for me to hold on here. Okay, I understand. Then you have to be more careful. Guji's face became serious, and he didn't say much nonsense. Now is a special period, and there is no room for hesitation. He quickly set off, and rushed to other places that need reinforcement. What's going on? Tsunade and Shizune ran out of the store, and found that there was chaos around them. Mingshan saw the two of them running out from the corner of his eyes, and quickly turned his head and shouted, Hey, Tsunade, Shizune's sister. Ha. The two heard the shouting, and turned their eyes together. You should hurry back to the hospital now, and help the staff to transfer the elderly, weak and sick. Mingshan took out a scroll from his waist bag, and said to them seriously, now there is an unknown number of enemies invading. The situation is very serious, please. Lady Tsunade. Shizune looked at Tsunade, and asked her to make the decision. HMM. Tsunade pondered for a moment, and then immediately decided in her heart that according to what Mingshan said, she would go to the hospital first to help, and escort all the old, weak, sick and disabled people to a safe place. She said to Shizune, Shizune, let's go to Konoha Hospital. Okay, Tsunade-sama. Shizune hugged Tun-Tun, and walked back quickly with her. Click, click. The dense footsteps came from behind him again. Mingshan turned around and saw a large group of ninjas in front of him on the left, holding sharp blades and rushing quickly. Looking at the forehead protection marks, they were ninjas from the Hidden Sound Village. TSK, the Hidden Sound Ninjas. Mingshan said disdainfully, waved the katana in his hand, raised the corner of his mouth, and said to himself, come on. At this moment, the third match of the Chunin exam was on the scene. Under the thick fog, the third Hokage was held hostage by the fourth Kazakage and jumped to the center of the venue, on the roof of the plaque of the world's number one. Whoosh, whoosh. During this time, several black shadows rushed to the four corners of the eaves and stood still. It's finally our turn to appear on the stage. One of the ninjas with 6 arms and wearing a Yanayan forehead protector lazily said to the others. In the distance opposite to him, there were 2 Yanayan ninjas whose bodies were combined into one. While stretching their legs and muscles, they kept complaining to the others, I have been in the transformation state all the time and I can't make a move. I can't stand it anymore. TSK, you are all sweaty bastards. On the other side, a red Yanayan girl angrily scolded them, after shaking her hair a few times. Opposite her, a sturdy fat man heard the scolding and hurriedly opened his mouth to smooth things over, persuading, don't be like this, we are partners. The third Hokage ignored the fourth Kazakage who was holding a kunai and hijacking him behind him. He looked at these ninjas carefully and thought, Yanayan. Swish, swish. 4 ANBU ninjas also jumped onto the eaves together. After seeing the fourth Kazakage and the third Hokage on the roof, TSK, the masked ninja in a white robe, said to the people behind him, let's go and rescue the Hokage. Be careful of the traps. Yes. Several black-robed masked ninjas nodded one by one and jumped away. Do it. Seeing this, the fourth Kazakage ordered the 4 ninjas in the corner. Yes. The 4 Ottonins restrained their hip-hop attitude at the same time and quickly and seriously formed hand seals and shouted in unison, ninjutsu, 4 purple flame formation. The 4 of them jointly performed and launched a purple light barrier from the 4 directions of southeast, northwest, and northeast. The barrier formation was surrounded by walls formed by black and grey flames, preventing outsiders from directly entering the barrier. A black-robed ANBU ninja jumped over and ran straight into the wall in disbelief. The result was swish, swish, ah. As soon as he touched the 4 walls of the barrier, he was burned all over by the blazing flames. He screamed and rolled off the eaves. Barrier? The other people had originally planned to break in directly from the 4 walls of the barrier. After seeing their companions in such a miserable state, they all hurriedly retreated to their original positions. The fourth Kazakage inside the barrier laughed very sinisterly. When the third Hokage heard this laugh, he just looked at him expressionlessly and said in a low voice, Sir Kazakage, is it a barrier ninjutsu? K's voice rang out in the audience. They can break through the ANBU. They don't seem to be ordinary people. Kakashi looked at the barrier with a serious face. He and K were very worried about the situation of the third Hokage. The two were about to rush to the roof to support. Whoosh. In front of K and Kakashi, a masked ninja from the ANBU blocked the way. He asked, what are you doing? The Hokage is in danger now. The ANBU ninja did not say anything, but just started to make hand seals. Swish, swish. A moment later, 4 disguised Togakure ninjas jumped out from the audience and stood side by side beside the ANBU ninja. It's really a headache. Kakashi glanced at the other side. I didn't expect that there are enemies disguised as ANBU. K pondered with a serious expression. They were the ones who launched that large-scale illusion just now. Yes, it was him. Kakashi nodded. Chapter 114 Sound Sand Invasion. Oh, I've waited too long for this day to come. The fourth Kazakage sneered at the third Hokage. I didn't expect that Tsunagakure would betray Konoha. The third Hokage was very disappointed. The so-called covenant is just a trick to lull the opponent into carelessness. The fourth Kazakage said, his eyes suddenly sharp. The boring and dull game ends here. From now on, the history between the great powers will change. Do you want to start a war? The third Hokage questioned. That's right. The fourth Kazakage said bluntly. We should avoid direct armed confrontation between the 2 countries and seek to resolve existing conflicts through peace talks. The third Hokage was still trying to persuade the other party. It's not too late, Mr. Kazakage. The fourth Kazakage did not react much to this, but just closed his eyes and said, old people are easily overwhelmed by peace. When he opened his eyes again, he said shockingly, Teacher Sarutobi. The third Hokage was shocked, and his pupils shrank involuntarily after hearing this. He said angrily, asshole. On the observation tower of a high tower at the outermost edge of Konoha village, two Chunins were looking at a giant three-headed snake rushing towards them from a distance in horror. Not good. Go and negotiate. Boom. Boom. After a few loud noises, the snake quickly broke through the city defense with a crushing momentum, opening a very wide gap, allowing the long-awaited large number of the Atosaga coalition forces to pour into Konoha, forming a situation of internal and external cooperation. Bang, bang, bang. Several shurikens with detonating talismans quickly hit the snake's head, but only a small amount of smoke was blown out. The snake did not suffer any actual damage, but instead aroused its ferocity. Don't even think about entering the village. A dozen Konoha Chunin who came from the other side of the city wall shouted loudly, jumping into the air, to meet the three-headed snake, but unfortunately, bang, cap, ah. A few screams passed by, but they did not stop or delay the snake's steps at all, but instead killed and injured many people. Quick, go find reinforcement. Understood. The remaining few people saw that the situation was very critical and hurriedly ordered one of the team members to quickly return to the security building to report the situation. Darn. The man had just jumped up and rushed back when he was hit by several shurikens accurately on the back and fell down. The teammates' foreheads were covered with sweat. They turned around and stared at the large number of sand ninjas who had successfully established a foothold on the city wall. Damn. Under the scorching sun, in the center of the empty competition venue. Ding, ding. There were sporadic sounds of fighting in the audience. What's going on? Sasuke looked up at the sudden situation on the central stage, feeling confused. Stop it, Gaara. Sasuke heard Temura's anxious voice to stop him, and quickly turned around to look. I'm going to kill him. Gaara, covering his arm, walked towards Sasuke with murderous eyes. There's no point in fighting that guy anymore. Kankuro also stretched out his hand to stop Gaara. Don't forget the mission we are shouldering. Temuri reminded him. Get out of the way. Gaara ignored their words, pushed Kankuro away, and stared at Sasuke fiercely. Whoosh. What are you guys still doing? Maki landed in front of them. The battle has already begun. Gaara suddenly held his head with both hands and screamed in pain. Ah. Maki was annoyed. Damn it. At this time. Swish. Shirin and Genma also appeared in front of Sasuke. What's going on? Sasuke asked Genma from behind, but got no answer. Gaara. Temuri looked at Gaara kneeling with his head in his hands. What's wrong? Kankuro asked worriedly, but he didn't dare to help him up. Temuri knelt on one knee and checked Gaara's shoulder. The surface injury is more serious than expected, she reported to Maki, and it consumed too much chakra. What if I use that now? Kankuro asked. I'm afraid I can't do it. Temuri shook her head helplessly. How stupid. Maki blamed. You actually wanted to transform into a perfect form without waiting for the signal. What should we do now? Kanjiro was in no mood to listen to Maki's scolding about these trivial matters. Without Gaara's cooperation, can we still act according to the plan? Gaara is the killer of Tsunagakure. No matter what, he must play a role and implement the plan. Maki had no choice but to compromise and said to them, you should evacuate here first and take care of Gaara's injuries. After his chakra is fully recovered, we can resume the battle. I understand. Kanjiro half squatted and supported Gaara's other arm. Teacher, what about you? Temuri asked him. I'll stay and deal with these guys. Maki turned around and looked at Shirin and Genma. Do you think I will just let them go like this? Genma held 1,000 books in the corner of his mouth and stared at his opponent. Humph, I'll let them go for you to see. Maki said, shouting, go. Well. The three of them followed his orders and quickly jumped and fled the competition scene. TSK. Zu and Jan looked at Maki, who was sneering unhappily, and asked him, is Orochimaru the organizer of this amazing feast? Who knows? Maki was not interested in answering him. Let us create the atmosphere first. The two of them were on the verge of a fight. Sasuke. Zuan-chan said to him without turning back. Sorry, the Chunin exam is over. Huh. Sasuke looked at him in surprise. You already have the strength of a Chunin. Zuan-chan's face was solemn. Since you are a ninja of Konoha, you must help Konoha at this time. Is it enough to just defeat that bastard Gaara? Sasuke asked him. Continue the fight just now. Well, you can think so, but don't pursue too deeply. Zuan-chan reminded Sasuke. Next, it's no longer an exam, but a real battle. What you have to do is always the same. After saying that, Sasuke got up and ran away. Don't even think about leaving. Maki threw a shuriken to block Sasuke's way. Ding. Zuan-chan also threw a shuriken and blocked it. Whoosh. Sasuke leaped and also jumped out of the competition venue, chasing after Gaara and the other two. In a corridor next to the audience seats, Shino silently watched Sasuke leave. Sasuke. Kakashi looked at his back and said silently, what a bummer. The fourth Kazekage looked at the protagonists below, who left one by one, and said with regret, I originally wanted to take advantage of the dispute caused by Gaara to try to seize Sasuke, but now it seems that things really can't develop as I expected. Really? The third Hokage understood his painstaking efforts, so that's the case. Glancing at him, are you targeting Konoha and Sasuke as your first choice? Chapter 115, Choose one. Is Konoha village so important? The fourth Kazekage thought he was funny. Compared to this, if Gaara is fully awakened, you will see something more interesting. Then he changed the subject. However, let's not talk about this for now. It is your stupidity that has caused Konoha to fall into the mess it is in now. This time, I will definitely win. Humph, for all things, you won't know the outcome until the end. The third Hokage looked at him and said bluntly, I should have taught you this before, Orochimaru. Hearing this, he stretched out his hand and tore off his face, revealing his true face. I know very well that this day will come sooner or later, but the third Hokage stared at Orochimaru. It's not that easy to take my head off. Haha, I should have told you. Orochimaru kindly reminded the third Hokage, it's better to decide on the candidate for the fifth Hokage as soon as possible, as the third generation, that is, you, will die here. After saying that, he stretched out his long tongue and licked the kunai. Ding. Ah, my leg. A sound ninja fell down with a scream, holding his thigh. Kai. Before he could wail a few more times, his throat was easily cut by a sharp sword, and he fell to the ground and died on the spot. Damn, bastard, what a joke. The remaining sound ninjas looked at the seaweed-haired boy in front of them, whose body was stained with the blood of their companions, with a look of fear and disbelief. Where did this monster come from? Monster? The boy shook his head and flicked the blood off his weapon. Oh, you misunderstood. I'm just a passerby. After saying that, swish, he rushed quickly and flashed behind several people in an instant. Ah, I surrender. In just a few breaths, the remaining sound ninjas were killed, and the ground was full of broken limbs and arms scattered everywhere, like a purgatory. Pa. Mingshan spat out a mouthful of blood and spit from his mouth, accurately hitting the face of a corpse, and he put away the sword. Whoosh, whoosh. After a few leaps and turns, Mingshan was on top of a tall building, looking around. There's smoke rising from the venue, and there's a big snake in the southeast moving quickly towards the village. He lowered his head and thought, what should I do? Which way should I go first? Just as he was struggling with which way to go, he suddenly caught a glimpse of a wretched middle-aged man with white hair running by in his sight. Swish. Without saying a word, he instantly moved over and blocked him. Who are you? Just as he was about to ask, he looked up and saw, hey, why is it you? Let's be serious, Jiraiya. Mingshan went straight to the point. You should have heard the explosions in front, right? Yes, I heard it. I just met several waves of Sand Ninja and Sound Ninja teams on the road. Jiraiya pondered. Although the timing they chose was not right, it was enough to cause considerable chaos in the village. I was standing on the top floor of the tallest building in front, and found that in the southeast direction there was a three-headed giant snake spitting out its tongue desperately and swimming towards the prosperous area of the village. Mingshan pointed to the top of the building and continued, and I also found that there was a problem at the examination site, and a lot of thick smoke was rising. I'm afraid that Lord Hokage is in a bad situation now. TSK, the enemy launched an attack from two places at the same time, intending to cooperate inside and outside to completely attack Konoha. Jiraiya's face was rarely solemn. That's right. Mingshin thought about it for a while, and then discussed with him, how about this, let's divide the work, you go to stop the big snake, and I'll go to the venue to rescue the Hokage. Huh. Jiraiya was a little surprised. You want to go to the competition site alone to rescue? Because it's more realistic to ask me to delay and stop the invasion of the enemy army than to ask you to do it. Mingshin said to Jiraiya frankly, I still have some basic self-knowledge. Seeing that Mingshin was so sensible, Jiraiya was about to show off. Hey, kid, call me Sage. That's it please, Stinky Toad. You must try your best to stop the enemy. He actually threw down this sentence without even looking back, and jumped away by himself. Damn, this damn stinky boy. Jiraiya's nose was almost crooked with anger. Every time he uses me as a gun. Konoha Village, Ninja School. How's the Chunin exam going? Iruka stared at the children who were running around the playground to exercise, and was in a daze. Naruto's game should be over. He clenched his hands together involuntarily. The first round is against Niji. I hope he can win easily. Thinking about it, Iruka suddenly stood up and shook his head. No, as a teacher, how can I only cheer for one student? We are all lovely graduates, and we should support everyone fairly. Suddenly he sighed and said to himself, but, to be honest, I still hope Naruto can win the game. Are you worried about Naruto, brother? A childish voice came into his ears. Of course. Iruka was pulled back from his thoughts and looked up and blurted out without thinking, but the next second, he looked embarrassed to see the student stop running and stand in front of him, smiling and watching. Iruka blushed all of a sudden. Konohamaru smiled evilly, as expected. You guys. Iruka quickly changed the subject, pretending to scold the students. Didn't we say that we have to run 10 laps around the playground? We've already finished running. Yuden reminded the teacher. It was when the teacher was in a daze. Moji followed up and added a complaint. Iruka was embarrassed now. Teacher, you can't concentrate on the class in this state. Konohamaru gave him a suggestion. Or, let's send the get out of class early today. No. Iruka coughed dryly, did not agree with him, but said, continue the class. Seeing that there was no hope of ending the get out of class, the children left dejectedly one by one. Konohamaru just turned around and saw him in surprise and said, hey, what's with all the smoke? Hearing this, Iruka looked up at the place Konohamaru said and judged, is it over there at the exam venue? Don't you think it's noisy over there too? Moji said to his friends, pointing to another place. This is probably what happened. Yuden had just wiped his snot when new snot started flowing out of his nose. He analyzed it to Moji and Konohamaru. Well, for safety reasons, let the children go back to the classroom to take shelter. Iruka thought to himself, and then clapped his hands, asking the students to gather and lead them back to the classroom for self-study. Konoha Village, at the other end of the outer tower observation deck. Marino Ibiki looked at the billowing smoke in the distance. Damn Orochimaru. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 116, Defending Against the Enemy. What should we do? The subordinate inquired. Should we go to support? No. Marino Ibiki answered with his side face. It is very dangerous to act rashly without knowing the situation clearly, and it is even more so if it is confirmed that the mastermind is Orochimaru. Orochimaru. The subordinate was puzzled. Is he really such a dangerous person? He was originally a student of Hokage. Marino Ibiki turned around and said. Then why did he become a traitor? The subordinate was puzzled. In the past, Marino Ibiki told him in detail, when Hokage summoned everyone to elect the 4th generation Hokage, Orochimaru thought he was the most suitable candidate, but he was not accepted by everyone. He turned his head and looked forward. Not long after that guy left Konoha. I'm afraid Orochimaru resented Hokage because of that incident. Is this revenge? The subordinate asked Marino Ibuki uncertainly. Maybe. Marino Ibuki closed his eyes and recalled, when I was a child, I had only one feeling, after seeing him for the first time. His subordinates swallowed their saliva involuntarily while listening to the story. He doesn't look like a human, but like a demon that has transformed into a human form. It's terrible, and only terrible can be described. Whoosh. Report. A Konoha ninja landed and half knelt in front of Marino Ibuki to report the emergency. A three-headed snake appeared near the east gate, and following closely behind, about 200 Sound and Sand Coalition forces invaded the village. They are now fighting with ninjas who happened to pass by on patrol nearby, and the situation is unclear. Sound ninja, Sand ninja. Marino Ibuki frowned and made arrangements immediately. The first and second groups stay, and everyone else goes to the east gate. Hurry up. Yes. Everyone responded and set out. As soon as the three-headed snake entered the Konoha village, it rushed around, and its tail kept destroying houses wantonly. Swish, swish, swish. A new group of troops arrived in time. Seeing the big snake so fierce and wild, the leader gritted his teeth and shouted to everyone, "Stop it here." After that, he and everyone else used various ninjutsu to attack. For a while, the battle fell into an unprecedented stalemate. Clang, clang, cap, woo. The two Otonins with their eyes wide open, covered the shuriken on their necks with their hands, and fell in front of Mingshan. TSK, how many waves are there? Mingshan put the blade on the dead Otonin's body and wiped it clean. He couldn't remember how many he had killed. He felt very depressed. Every time he turned a corner, he would meet a team. I thought that there were 200 people invading Konoha, which was the maximum. I didn't expect that there would be so many. He secretly mocked himself for being too naive and having too naive ideas. After finishing the work, Mingshan continued to walk quickly. Soon, 2 or 3 more soldiers appeared. He swung his sword and shot them straight at him, thinking, Hina and Kimimaro are still at home. I don't know how they are doing. I hope they are safe and sound. The village was in turmoil and chaos. All he met along the way were enemy soldiers. He could only fight desperately and could not rush back home immediately. After chopped down these soldiers, Mingshan suddenly saw a female ninja fighting fiercely with 3 sand ninjas in front of him on the left. He was surprised and said, "Is that Han Dao?" Hiding shadow multi-snake hand. Han Dao released a large number of snakes from her 2 hands. She originally planned to use them to take advantage of the opponent's unpreparedness, aim at the vital points, and bite them fiercely. It's a snake. The 3 were bitten by the snakes released from her hands at once. His whole body twitched, and the snake venom penetrated into his nerves. He collapsed to the ground and died. Han Dao. Hearing someone calling her, Han Dao turned around and saw Mingshan, whose body was covered in blood. She was surprised and asked him, "Why are you here?" "I'm rushing to the game site to rescue." Mingshan cut to the chase. Hokage-sama is in danger now. What are you crazy about? Going alone? When Han Dao heard what he said, she was furious. The village is already in chaos now, with enemies everywhere. Can you stop messing around? She scolded him mercilessly. Are you worried that I will encounter an accident at the game site after I go there? After being severely taught a lesson by Han Dao, Mingshan still had the leisure to ask her this. Han Dao felt that she was suffocated by a rage in her chest, and she felt very uncomfortable and couldn't vent it. "Do you know that Orochimaru is over there? I know that, if I'm not careful, I'll be killed on the spot." Mingshan shook his head at her, stopping what Han Dao was going to say. "Orochimaru is very strong. With my strength alone, I have no chance of defeating him. But I can't not go. The Hokage has done a favor to Kimimaro and me. I really can't just watch him die." After hearing Mingshan's words, Han Dao gritted her teeth and remained silent for a long time. Then she looked at him and said, "Forget it, I'll go with you." Mingshan was very happy to hear her say that. The corners of his mouth turned up, showing a very beautiful smile. "What are you laughing at?" She felt like she was fooled by him. "No, I'm just happy." Mingshan scratched his head and told her honestly, "It would be great if we could fight side by side like this every day in the future." Han Dao was speechless when she heard this. She immediately rolled her eyes and urged him unhappily, "Hurry up and leave." It will be troublesome if we are entangled by the enemy again. Okay, let's go. There are quite a lot of people. Kakashi glanced around. I was really careless. K's eyes glanced at the place where the third Hokage was. Some of them went to the Hokage's place. Kakashi, look inside the barrier. K guided him to see. Kakashi shifted his gaze. What? Sakura also looked over. Orochimaru. Kakashi blurted out. Orochimaru. Sakura stood up in surprise and thought to herself, why is that guy here? She looked at the field below with an uneasy look. It was not until this moment that she was surprised to find, where is Sasuke? Sakura's uneasiness expanded. Why is Sasuke gone? Swish, swish. There were two sounds of breaking wind. She looked up subconsciously and found that two Otonin were holding Kyune in their hands and rushing towards her fiercely. Sakura was so scared that she quickly covered her head and closed her eyes. Crack, crack. Boom, boom. Hearing the sound of heavy objects falling, Sakura cautiously opened her eyes and saw Kakashi standing in front of her. Sakura, stay here for a while. I'll go reduce the number of enemies. Kakashi looked down at her and smiled. The next moment, he rushed towards the new enemy who was about to attack. Swish, swish. Several Konoha ninjas who happened to be patrolling near the venue saw the thick smoke rising from the scene and rushed over to support them in time. As soon as they rushed out of the passage, they held Kyune and rushed straight to the Otonin standing in the audience. Clang, clang. The sound of metal clashing between Konoha and Otogakure was endless. After fighting off the attacks of several Otonin, Kei stood back to back with Kakashi and said to him, damn it, I wonder how the Hokage is doing. Chapter 117 Tracking Uchiha Sasuke. Let the ANBU handle that. Kakashi comforted Kei. Besides, the Hokage-sama is not someone who can be killed so easily. But, no matter what, that person is also the Hokage-sama of our Konoha village. Kei wanted to say something else, but Kakashi told him to just relax and focus on the enemy. At this moment, on the roof. Are you so happy that you are crying? The third Hokage smiled meaningfully at Orochimaru. Or do you feel a little sad to kill your master? No. Orochimaru said in a flat tone, without answering the third Hokage's question. Snort. He suddenly stabbed his other palm with a kunai, and blood splattered on the bricks and tiles. Orochimaru yawned nonchalantly. I have been feeling very sleepy since just now, and now I finally wake up. I knew it would be like this. The third Hokage was not too surprised by his performance. Orochimaru let go of the third Hokage and walked straight to the other side. I know you're not a man who likes revenge. The third Hokage said to him coldly. You have neither purpose nor motive. Well, yes. Orochimaru admitted with his back to the third Hokage, but continued, as for purpose, I do have one. If you have to say it, it's interesting to see something that moves, but wouldn't it be boring to see something that is still? Orochimaru took off the Kazukage's hat. It's like a windmill that doesn't turn. Although sometimes you may think it's good depending on your mood, it's not worth seeing from a practical point of view. He threw it away and turned around. Now with the help of this strong wind that destroyed Konoha, I'm going to make the windmill start turning. You haven't changed at all. Ding. Ding. Sakura. After forcing back a new wave of attacks from the Sound Ninja, Kakashi stopped attacking and said to Sakura, who was holding her head with her eyes closed, I didn't teach you in vain during the survival exercise to judge the genin. You really have excellent illusion talent. Sakura was puzzled. Go and perform the illusion breaking technique to wake up Naruto and Shikamaru. Hearing this, she turned to look at the two people lying on the ground. Naruto should be very happy. Kakashi looked at the two fighting parties. It's been a long time since I went on a mission. Mission? Sakura asked. You must be careful. This is the first A-level mission since the Land of Waves. Kakashi told Sakura seriously, asking her to be prepared to accept it. Bang. As he said that, Kakashi punched the Otonin who was attacking from the side and sent him flying. Teacher Kakashi. Sakura dodged. In this situation, what exactly are we going to do on an A-rank mission? Sasuke's going after Gaara of the Sand Ninja. Sakura. He cut his thumb with a kunai. Go and break the illusions of Naruto and Shikamaru, and then go after Sasuke with them. Preparing to cast a hand seal to summon spirits, he thought to himself, I'm really worried about Gaara's strange chakra. recalling the scene from the previous match when Gaara turned himself into a ball of sand on the spot and Sasuke used Drakiri to break through his absolute defense. The huge arm that chased out from inside still impressed Kakashi. But if we want to do this, why not wake up Ino and Choji as well? The more people the better, Sakura suggested. I'm afraid that quite a number of sand and sound ninjas have invaded the village. If we operate with a basic team of 4, we will lose efficiency, and it will be difficult to avoid being discovered by the enemy. Kakashi glanced around and analyzed. You learned this during the patrol training at the ninja school. Yes. Sakura suddenly realized, if there are 4 people, that means Kakashi sensei will go with them. No, I can't leave here. Kakashi slowly began to make hand seals. Spirit summoning technique. Bang. A puff of white smoke dissipated. Next, this Parker will use the smell to help you track Sasuke. Kakashi introduced Sakura. Could it be that our 4th team member is this puppy? Sakura asked Kakashi with surprise. As soon as she finished speaking, the puppy with a forehead protector jumped in front of Sakura and said, "Hey, little girl, don't call me a cute puppy. I didn't say you were cute." Sakura wondered and complained in her heart. "Okay, Sakura." Kakashi urged her, "Go and break the illusion of Naruto and Shikamaru." Sakura nodded and sneaked on the ground with Parker to avoid the enemy's attention. Carefully approaching Naruto who was sleeping on the ground, Sakura started to break the illusion and said, "Break it." After a while, Naruto was awakened by her. "What's wrong, Sakura?" Naruto rubbed his sleepy eyes and stood up to ask her. Whoosh. Sakura heard the sound of breaking wind in her ears and only had time to shout, "Lie down," and pulled Naruto down. Ding. A shuriken fell. "I'll explain it later, lie down first," Sakura said to him softly, then turned to find Shikamaru, but unexpectedly saw him frowning involuntarily. "Shikamaru." Sakura couldn't help but call him in a heavier tone. "You have been." Parker walked slowly to Shikamaru's legs and feet, opened his mouth and bit him. "It hurts." Shikamaru jumped up in pain and swung Parker hard. "Don't you know how to rebound illusions?" Sakura scolded him angrily. "Why are you pretending to be asleep? TSK, I don't want to be dragged into inexplicable trouble." Shikamaru finally caught Puck. "I'm not going." He pinched the dog's face carefully with his hands. "I don't want to care what happens to Sasuke." Shikamaru played with Puck's face and pulled it, which made it angry. It opened its mouth and bit his hand, howling, "It hurts." Ding. Ding. Ha. Hearing the sound of darts hitting each other, Naruto raised his head and looked around. He was shocked to find that except for the 3 of them and the dog, almost everyone was unconscious in the audience. He murmured in disbelief, "What is going on? Naruto, watch out behind you." A sound ninja was about to attack him from behind. Suddenly, boom. A black shadow flashed by, and the Otonin was punched into the wall. He only had time to admire. So fast. Not just fast. K used his arm strength, and knocked him out of the wall. "Teacher K." Sakura was about to say something, and Kakashi jumped in front of them and said, "Well, next, I will officially convey the mission. After you listen to it, leave through that hole." Everyone listened carefully. "After you go find Sasuke and meet him, you must stop him from continuing to act on his own. I will give you other instructions later. Before the new order is issued, you must await in a safe place." Kakashi explained the specific mission content to them with a serious face. Chapter 118 Hinata is in trouble. "What did Sasuke do?" Naruto asked Kakashi. Sakura slowly crawled to Naruto's side with both hands, whispering in his ear, "I'll tell you the reason as we walk." Then she grabbed him without saying anything and jumped out to leave the competition together. "I'm really drunk. Why do I have to go too?" Shikamaru looked at the backs of the 2 and kept complaining. "Hey, kid." Parker spoke to him at this time, and Shikamaru turned his head to look at him strangely. "After the mission is successful, I will let you touch my paw as a reward, so don't nag me all the time." Shikamaru was puzzled. "Look, it's very elastic." Parker raised his dog paw and enthusiastically promoted it to him. "Elastic, elastic?" Shikamaru looked at it with difficulty and said in his heart, "I don't need it, even if you have elasticity." "No, it's better to say it." Parker shouted at him, "Super, super elastic." Shikamaru was speechless. "Okay, let's go." Parker bit his hand again and jumped out of the hole. Hey. Kei watched Sakura and the others leave the venue one after another and turned to ask Kakashi, can they chase them alone? With Parker following them, it should be fine. Kakashi took out the shuriken, as long as Naruto and the others don't chase too deep. Shino, who was hiding in the corner and heard all this, quietly left in an instant and actually planned to follow Uchiha Sasuke's path. The originally quiet and elegant little house, at this moment, ding. Be careful, Hotaru. Kimimaro threw a bone knife behind her. Poof. It accurately pierced the enemy's chest, causing him to scream and fall to the ground and die before he could attack. Damn, what's wrong with these sand ninjas and sound ninjas? Aang gritted her teeth, holding a kunai in her hand, trembling slightly. This was the first time she had seen such a scene in her life. She was very scared and murmured, why are you attacking us? Huh. Kimimaro looked at the corpses in front of him, put his bone knife on the ground, and panted to Aang, it's okay, girl, let's go quickly, there will be new enemies here at any time. Yeah. Aang nodded and looked at her own house, that was already on fire. Although she was heartbroken, she still helped Kimimaro, who was very pale, and the two of them slowly left and went downstairs. Boom. The ground shook, and many densely packed buildings in the village shook together. Jiraiya was dragged down by the annoying soldiers who appeared and disappeared all the way, and he could not get there quickly. This gave the three-headed snake an opportunity to gradually approach the inner circle of the village and wreak havoc. Hiss! Exclamation mark. The snake raised its head and made a harsh sound, floating over the village. In a remote infirmary at the competition site, Tenten and Niji stood side by side, looking through the skylight and seeing the unparalleled giant snake far away from the scene. What is that? Tenten wondered why such a huge creature suddenly appeared in the village. Upon hearing this, Niji had a bad feeling in his heart. Seeing that the three-headed snake continued to cause trouble, he opened the door and rushed out of the infirmary. Did you notice it? Niji said to Tenten, who came out with him. The cheers from the venue have stopped. Well, the atmosphere has become solemn. Tenten also felt this unusual difference. Baian. Niji opened his Byakugan to scout the situation and found that the situation was very bad. He said in disbelief, how could this happen? There are battles everywhere in the village, and the air is filled with smoke. His brows furrowed. The ninjas from the Sand Village and the Sound Village have actually joined forces to launch a large-scale attack on Konoha. Tenten was shocked. Isn't this? Niji nodded. Yes, war. Niji and Tenten discussed for a moment, and in order to obtain more detailed information, the two rushed to the upper auditorium together, but things had already exceeded their imagination and were somewhat out of control. Konoha and the Sound Ninja were fighting fiercely there. That's it. Niji saw an old man lying on the ground in the back row of the audience and ran over in shock and shouted, "Elder!" trying to wake him up. I said, "Are you okay?" Tenten shook Ya, who was lying next to the elder. Well, Ya frowned and woke up with a Kamaru. He recalled what happened before in a daze. He quickly looked up at the surrounding scene and said in surprise, "Hey, what happened? It seems that you are fine." Tenten breathed a sigh of relief. "Why did you fall here?" Ya told Tenten what happened not long ago. He was knocked unconscious by an enemy, disguised as an ANBU, while taking care of Hinata, whose old injury recurred after the preliminaries. The one here also avoided fatal injuries. The two who were talking looked over to Niji after hearing this. What happened? He gently lifted up the elder's body and asked. Well, to careless, Hinata was kidnapped, the elder said with a frown and slightly opened his eyes. What did you say? The three of them were shocked at the same time, and the elder continued to narrate helplessly. She was abducted by two Kirigakure ninjas who came to watch the battle. They probably thought that they could take the Byakugan out of the village during the chaos. Although I wanted to stop them. The elder finally recalled that he was knocked unconscious on the spot by the sneak attack of the Sound Ninja. Otherwise he would have been able to stop the Kirigakure ninjas from abducting people. Darn. The elder suddenly grabbed Niji's arm and said sadly, Ningsi, the Byakugan is an important secret that your father swore to protect at the cost of his life. He raised his head, looked at him, and said, we must never let others take away our clan's important things so easily. Go after them, even if it costs your life, we must take it back. As the elder spoke, His tone became more and more severe and earnest. Niji nodded. I understand. Just as he was about to leave, he was stopped by Tenten behind him. Wait, Niji, I'll go with you. He didn't turn around, but just turned his back to her and shook his head, saying, no need, this is the Hyuga family's business. Even so, you can't go alone. Tenten retorted. I want to go too. Hinata is my cherished companion. Kiba interrupted and said disdainfully to Niji's back, you don't care about Hinata at all. How could you really save her? You guy. Tenten was a little angry and wanted to retort to Kiba. Niji turned around and stopped Tenten with his eyes and looked at Kiba for a while, then said, then let's go together. You have a very sensitive sense of smell. It was considered a compromise, and the few people acted together. After the three of them were ready, they joined in with Akamaru, forming a 4-person team, and together they avoided the two warring parties, and after running out of the competition site, they relied on Kiba's sense of smell to track and recapture Hinata. Whoosh, whoosh, ha. Mingshin and Hongdao were rushing to the venue. When they passed a corner, they ran into two ninjas carrying a little girl on their shoulders. The other party was obviously surprised and jumped back to distance themselves from them. They quickly took out their shuriken to prepare for defense. Mingshin carefully identified her and exclaimed, isn't that? Ding. Ding. Chapter 119. Intercepting the road. Idiot, what are you thinking about? Hongdao used her shoulder to push him away, blocking the shuriken that attacked from the side. Die. Suddenly, several Otonin appeared on both sides of the road with ferocious faces and were about to swing their kunai at Hongdao's waist. Swish. Boom. Boom. Ah. Screams rang out on both sides, and several Otonin were either stabbed in the throat by the shuriken thrown by Mingshin, or hit in other vital parts of the body, and fell to the ground one after another. Sorry, Hongdao, I was a little distracted just now. Mingshin scratched his head at her, grinning foolishly, but Hongdao just rolled her eyes at him, and turned back to look at the two people. TSK, there's no time to waste here. Among the two, the other ninja who was wrapped in a forehead scarf and did not carry the girl said, after scanning the opposite side. The bald ninja carrying the girl on his shoulders was about to discuss with his companions. How about, excuse me, I have an idea, I don't know if I should say it or not. What? That is, you should all stay in Konoha. Mingshin gave them a good idea and said with a sneer, HMPH, so big. Just when the bald man was about to mock the kid for having the courage to say such a big thing, he saw Mingshin had disappeared in an instant and attacked. Whoosh. Clang. The bald man's companion dodged to his side in time and used a kunai to help him resist Mingshin's unexpected ninja sword attack. This kid. The turban ninja felt that this young man was very difficult to deal with because the two of them fought each other for several rounds and the two sides were actually in a close fight. The bald man took advantage of this opportunity and took out two smoke bombs in his hand. When he was about to throw them to the ground to spread and escape. Hiss. Suddenly, a bunch of pythons rushed towards him, frightening him so much that he quickly threw the girl on his shoulder to the ground and dodged in a hurry. Hongdao took the opportunity to catch the person from the side and immediately turned over and jumped back, creating some distance between them. Then, when the bald man was busy dealing with the python, she gently patted the girl's face with her hand, trying to wake her up. Wake up, Hinata. Damn it. The turban ninja was furious when he saw this and forced Mingshin back with one move. He immediately jumped back to create some distance and began to make hand seals and shouted, Earth style, Earth, and Stone Dragon. Countless earth and stones were shaken and gathered by the turban ninja into an earth dragon with amazing momentum. He stood on the dragon's head and said coldly to Mingshin and Hongdao, you two bastards, I don't have time to waste here with you. Give the girl back to us. What if I don't give it back? Mingshin raised his eyebrows, and after seeing the other party's forehead protector clearly, he asked teasingly, are all cloud ninjas so uneducated? You dare to be so arrogant and domineering when you rob people in another country's village? TSK, you don't want to give it back, huh? The turban ninja said fiercely, his eyes full of murderous intent. Then you will die here. Earth style, rock pillar prison. After getting rid of the python, the bald man also jumped onto the dragon head, quickly formed a seal, and launched an earth-style ninjutsu towards the two of them, suddenly creating thick earth pillars around them, restricting their range of movement. This is not good. Hongdao hugged Hinata, who was still unconscious, and secretly cursed in her heart. She turned to look at Mingshan, and found that he was also trapped, and unable to break free. Humph, goodbye. Just as the two drove the earth dragon to rush towards them. Wood style, sea of trees. Cap, bang. Many green trees quickly grew from the hard surface, easily breaking through the opponent's earth pillar confinement. What? The two cloud ninjas and Hongdao exclaimed at the same time, while the earth dragon took the initiative to approach them. Hey! Mingshan roared, speeding up the growth of branches, climbing around the earth dragon and entwining it. Not good. Seeing that the situation was not good, the two cloud ninjas quickly broke away from the earth dragon and jumped away. As soon as their front feet left, the branches followed and wrapped around the dragon's head. This kid actually knows would release. Damn it. The turban ninja said unwillingly. Let's retreat quickly, if the Hyuga family. The bald man didn't finish his words. Poof. A long thorn pierced into his back, and in the blink of an eye, it penetrated his entire body. Without even a scream, he fell to the ground, and died on the spot. Mingshan, who had jumped into the air at some point, shot out a long thorn from his palm, and then retracted his hand. As he landed, he stared coldly at the other cloud ninja. The turban ninja was horrified, and with a clang, he blocked the side attack of another Mingshan. He looked at his companion's tragic death, and no longer had the fierce momentum before. He hurriedly moved and jumped quickly, trying to escape from here. Why are you running, buddy? Don't you want to kill us? Mingshan's gentle voice suddenly sounded behind him. Snap, crack. In a flash, Mingshan's entire body faded and turned into branches and vines, tightly wrapping around the opponent, causing him to fall. Bang. He fell heavily to the ground, breaking his nose and bleeding all over his face. He raised his head with difficulty and pain, and saw Mingshan holding a bloody sword in his hand, slowly walking towards him. Don't kill. Swish. He cut into his throat with a knife, ignoring the almost stupid plea for mercy. I hate you the most. You have no ability, but dare to say harsh words. After saying that, he didn't forget to spit on that face. After checking that there were no other hidden enemies around, he walked back to Hongdao. TSK, you actually have the ability of bloodline limit. Hongdao said to him unhappily. You can do it. What are you doing? Mingshan felt guilty. You didn't ask me. Why didn't you use it before? Hongdao questioned this guy. I once promised the Hokage that I would never use wood release unless it was absolutely necessary. Mingshan swung his sword a few times to wipe off the blood on the blade and sheathed it. Hongdao wanted to complain about him, but soon a voice came from her arms. Are you awake? Hongdao helped her sit up on the ground. Hinata frowned and opened her eyes slightly. She was startled by the sudden appearance of a corpse in front of her, and then, with Hongdao's comforting explanation, she calmed down and heard someone calling her. Are you okay, Hinata? She looked up slightly and saw that it was Mingshan who asked. Then she lowered her head in frustration and answered him in a low voice. I'm fine. Yes, I'm sorry. It's all my fault for being so useless and causing you trouble. Look up, Hinata. Mingshan wiped the sweat from his cheek. Huh. Hinata looked up when she heard it. You have no reason to apologize to us. Mingshan, as usual, dug his ears and said to Hinata nonchalantly, we are companions. Although we are not teammates in the same class, we are ninjas from the same village, right? Mingshan. Just when Hinata didn't know what to say to Mingshan. Hey, Hinata. The three heard someone calling Hinata's name from the front, and Mingshan subconsciously turned around and stood guard in front of Hongdao and her. Thanks to brother Kalxiangton for the recommendation vote yesterday. Chapter 120 Ningxi. Swish, swish. 3 people and 1 dog soon appeared in front of Mingshan and the others, and said in surprise, hey, it's you. Why are you here? Kiba asked him curiously. Red Bean and I are going to the competition site, and passing by here. What about you? Mingshan told the reason why the two came here. We are here to save Hinata. Kiba looked at Hinata who was safe and sound behind him, and said with a sigh of relief, oh, After asking and answering each other, both sides suddenly fell into a strange awkward silence. Cough. It was still Red Bean who couldn't help but pretend to cough dryly and broke the silence. Now that Hinata has been rescued safely, I will entrust her to you. We still have to rush to the venue first. Okay, don't worry. Kiba nodded to the second examiner of the Chunin exam, just when Hinata was about to walk to their side. Wait a minute, Hinata. Mingshin spoke, stood up, and walked to her side, to stop her from going back. Everyone looked at Mingshin in confusion. What's wrong, Mingshin? Hinata asked him. What are you doing? Anko wanted to scold him, but when she saw his unusually serious expression, she was about to say something. Ninji, why are you here? Mingshin looked past Kiba and said, you wanted to kill Hinata in the preliminaries. Give me a reasonable explanation, otherwise. One hand was on the hilt of the knife, and the meaning was obvious. Hey, you guy, don't go too far. Seeing him like this, Xianshan was so angry that he took out his weapon and pretended to help Nisi. TSK, Mingshin, listen to me. Actually, Kiba was about to explain, but unexpectedly, Nisi stretched out his bandaged right hand, put it on his shoulder, and signaled him not to speak, and walked out to Mingshin alone. Seeing this, Kiba had no choice but to take back the words, and looked at the two of them in silence. Ninji brother, Mingshin. Hinata also looked at both sides, her hands tangled in front of her chest, not knowing how to speak to ease the atmosphere between them. Ningxi closed his eyes and thought deeply for a moment, then opened his eyes and slowly spoke to Mingshin. I didn't know the truth, and I resented the main family without authorization. I was arrogant and thought I knew the truth of the past. He sighed. I thought everything was fate, and I was the only one suffering the most. Mingshin listened and gradually removed his hand from the hilt. It was not until Lord Hayashi left the scene after my match and returned my father's suicide note to me in private in the infirmary that I understood what happened back then. Mingshin noticed that Ningxi had indeed changed from before. And in that match, the man who fought me, he looked at Hinata calmly. He told me that Hinata-sama was also suffering the same pain. In order to change her current situation, where she was not recognized, she fought desperately with her weak self. He turned his gaze back to Mingshin. Foolishly, I never thought about these things. It was he who directly exposed them that made me see how narrow my vision was. Naruto, him. After listening to Niji's story, Hinata couldn't help but pronounce his name aloud, and her heart was filled with waves. She didn't expect that Naruto would actually fight for her on the field. After Niji finished speaking these words, he looked up at the sky, both to himself and to them. Uzumaki Naruto, he is really an interesting man. Yeah. Hinata nodded in agreement. She was very happy to agree with Niji's evaluation of Naruto. So, now, can you protect Hinata? After listening to Mingshin, his attitude changed greatly, and he was no longer as hostile to him as before. Niji looked at him with a very frank look. This time, I will do my best to protect Hinata-sama. Even if it costs my life, I will not hesitate. Oh, I will trust you once. Xianshan stepped back, stretched out his hand, and gently pushed Hinata towards Niji. Tomorrow? Hinata turned her head to look at him. Niji has already promised this, so I have nothing to worry about. Xianshan said to her with a smile. We still have a tough battle to fight next, and we will part ways here. Xianshan stretched his sore arms and said to them, I'm serious, there are only two of you, and the venue is now. Xianshan wanted to speak to stop the two of them, but he was only halfway through his words. Hey, did you hear me? How about this? Mingshan turned to look at Hangdao, pretending to be serious and said, I'd better go alone, and you? Humph, if you say one more word of nonsense. Hangdao didn't have the patience to wait for him to finish and said with a stern face, I'll let the snake bite you to death. You saw it too. Mingshan turned back, spread his hands in front of them, shook his head and said, this is how it is. Let's say goodbye here. He and Hangdao exerted force on their feet, and with a thump, they continued to walk quickly towards the venue, leaving only the remaining words on the spot. Yap, Xianshan, Niji, Hinata is in your care. Really, this guy Mingshan. Ya put his hands in his pockets. He takes all the limelight. Stop complaining. Xianshan said, and turned to Hinata. Hinata, let's escort you back to the main family first. There are fighting everywhere in the village now, and it's not safe to go anywhere. Yeah, okay. Inside the barrier, the 4 purple flame array. Orochimaru smiled strangely and said respectfully to his teacher, after so many years, I can finally fight you again. This barrier can only be broken from the inside. Several members of the ANBU outside the barrier discussed with each other, as long as the Hokage kills one of the 4 people in the corner, we can help. Hey. The sound ninja with 6 arms shouted to the other 3 companions, it's almost time to start. Well, let's build a barrier for ourselves. The ninja at the 2 ends said and opened a diamond-shaped network barrier around him. Oh. The fat man at the other end opened it behind him as he said, and the other 2 followed suit. It seems that it's not easy to get out. Don't be so hypocritical, teacher, for you. Letting them in will only cause trouble, right? Huh. The master and apprentice sneered at the same time, and looked at each other. The ANBU members could only wait outside like this, very anxious. At this moment, a breeze blew across the roof, lifting the 2 people's shadow robes. Snap. Damn. The 2 people crushed the tiles under their feet at the same time, and jumped forward to attack. The 3rd Hokage took the lead and quickly formed a seal, ninjutsu, while shuriken invisibly controlled a lot of tiles, making them automatically peel off the roof like shurikens, and fly towards Orochimaru at high speed. You underestimated me. He easily dodged the attack of tiles, jumped into the air, and shouted, lurking snake hand. He shook his head, and opened his mouth, and stretched out his long tongue, suddenly transformed into a big python, hiss, and rushed towards the 3rd Hokage. Snap. Thank you, brother in Shengrumeng, for your recommendation vote yesterday. Chapter 121 Catching Up. The snake opened its mouth and bit the 3rd Hokage's neck artery, making him unable to move. With your level of attack. Orochimaru shook his head in disappointment. You can't deal with me at all, Sarutobi-sensei. Huh. Suddenly, he saw the 3rd Hokage's body faded into mud and droop softly. This was actually a clone. TSK, is it a soil substitute? He landed and stood near the mud pile. He rolled back his long tongue and glanced at the side. Earth style, earth flow river. The mud flow under Orochimaru's feet instantly turned into a liquid state, making him unstable and sliding outward. Is that all you have? While making hand seals, he disdainfully mocked the 3rd Hokage. Don't even think about succeeding. The 3rd Hokage continued to make hand seals. Earth style, earth dragon bomb. A head of an earth dragon rose up from the mud flow and quickly poured mud bombs towards Orochimaru's position. Fire style, fire dragon bullet. The 3rd Hokage then puffed up his cheeks and blew flames forward from his mouth, mixing them with the mud bullets, causing them to stick to and burn. He then quickly hit Orochimaru, who was unable to escape from the mud flow. You actually combined earth style and fire style together. You are truly worthy of being the Hokage. The members of the ANBU expressed their admiration for the 3rd Hokage's move. Ah. After the scream, the flames and mud flow disappeared completely. HMPH, don't play such a boring trick, Orochimaru. The 3rd Hokage sneered at the empty space. Come out. Amazing. You are worthy of being the one who saw through it at a glance. Orochimaru emerged from the bottom, but I was underestimated, too. He said to him seriously, do you think you can kill me with a move of that level? TSK, you are still the same, not likable at all. The 3rd Hokage said to him, while keeping the hand seal. Haha, isn't there a saying, that the more troublesome the student is, the cutest one? Orochimaru responded with a smile. Don't you think so, Sarutobi-sensei? After saying that, he stretched out his long tongue and licked the edge of his lips. The 3rd Hokage just stared at this without saying a word. Ninja school. In the classroom, the children were studying in their respective seats. Some took out their sketchbooks to doodle, some lay on the table and slept late, and some went to find their familiar friends in other seats, chattering together, secretly chatting about the gossip in the school. Looking around, only the 3 people at Konohamaru's table seemed particularly quiet in the noisy classroom. This is very strange. Konohamaru sat alone in his seat, his hand on his chin, looking out the window, dazed and absent-minded, thinking, all the classes in the school are studying together. Is it related to that cigarette? He thought of what teacher Iruka said before, and judged in his heart, this is definitely a problem. While he was daydreaming alone, Yuden and Moji were both writing on their desks, doing what they liked. Honestly, Moji complained to Yuden while drawing. It's really a headache that the teacher suddenly asked us to study. It's been a long time since we started just now. Well, teacher Iruka and the others are really slow. Yuden also felt that the study time was too long and looked at Konohamaru. What do you think, Konohamaru? However, he seemed to have not heard it and kept staring out the window. Yuden saw that he didn't reply and was about to try to call him again. Bang! Moji suddenly screamed loudly, successfully pulling Konohamaru's thoughts back, and he and Yuden looked at her together. Really? How could this happen? Mohuan complained while staring at the things on the table. Konohamaru followed her gaze and found that it was a pink colored pencil that was neatly broken into 2 halves from the inside. My mother just bought it for me. Mohuan felt distressed. I'll lend you my pink pencil first, Yuden said as he took out the pencil. I don't want it. Mohuan rejected his kindness. This pink pencil is the newest color this spring. What should I do? The little girl said worriedly. Konohamaru looked at the broken colored pencil, then turned back to look out the window thoughtfully. However, after looking at it for a while, he suddenly looked up and saw that the sun in the sky had 2 round rainbows intertwined. He couldn't help but squeaked and muttered in his heart, that's... In the audience, the 2 sides were fighting fiercely at this moment. Naruto and his friends were sent by Kakashi and his friends to stop Sasuke. The ANBU ninja from before looked at the big hole behind Kakashi and the others and spoke calmly. Just those little brats. The subordinates around him didn't take it seriously after hearing this. No matter how much trouble a few genin can cause, there's actually nothing to worry about, Lord Kabuto. Kabuto ignored his words and took out a shinobi card from his sleeve. Is this the data of the little brat just now? The subordinates saw him take out the card and glanced at it. HMPH, you overestimate him. You are too naive. Kabuto said coldly to his subordinates through the mask. Underestimating the enemy will lead to great losses. Kabuto threw the card to him and ordered, you go and gather 2 teams now and make sure to catch up and stop Naruto and the others. Understood. The subordinate took the card and nodded. I'll go right away. Just as he was about to leave. Ding. Ding. Kabuto dodged in time and used his shuriken to block Kakashi, who had attacked from the side at some point. He smiled gently and said, oh, Kakashi, you are too impatient. No way. Kakashi wrestled with him. I also need to buy time for my subordinates. Dang. Ta. K wanted to follow Kakashi to join in, but unfortunately he was entangled by several other Otonin. Kabuto's men took this opportunity to leave the venue and quickly gathered people to prepare to chase Naruto and his friends. Hiss. The 3-headed snake swept through the village, messing up the villagers' houses and collapsing many of them, but fortunately no one was hurt. TSK, what is Jiraiya doing? Why haven't you rushed to suppress it yet? Mingshin received the information passed back depressedly. He conjured a shadow clone and stood on the other side of the high building to look at the snake. He saw that it was causing more and more damage to the village, but the surrounding ninjas were at a loss. It's useless even if we rush over now. It will waste too much time. Hongdao half comforted and half persuaded him. Let's just trust Jiraiya-sama. He will appear in time at the critical moment to stop the snake from continuing to destroy. I hope so. Mingshin sighed, and when he and Hongdao turned the last intersection and were about to arrive at the competition site. Hey? Mingshin pointed to Hongdao and asked her to look over there. Hongdao, look quickly. She followed the direction of Mingshin's finger and saw a big hole in the outer wall of the venue. What's going on? Chapter 122 Coffin. We don't know what's going on, but let's follow the wall through the hole to enter the competition venue. Okay. Mingshin and Hongdao ran towards the venue at a constant speed. After half a cup of tea, they came to the corner of the wall. The 2 of them stepped on the wall and walked away. In the blink of an eye, they were getting closer and closer to the hole. Swish. A black shadow suddenly floated out of the hole. When he looked down, he saw 2 people approaching the wall. He subconsciously judged that they were enemies. Without thinking, he adjusted his body and dived down. He threw out a few shuriken with his hands and then accelerated in an instant and attacked with a strong attack. Ding, ding. HMM. The two just blocked the attack from above, and then they were surprised to notice that the other party was flying towards them at a very fast speed. Ming Xian was about to draw his waist knife, but Han Dao was one step faster than him and took out a kunai to fight. Clang! The sound of metal clashing rang out, and they wrestled with each other. The two raised their eyes at the same time, and their eyes met. After seeing each other clearly, they were all stunned. "Hey, why is it you?" the two asked at the same time, and then paused. Han Dao stopped and asked him angrily and amusedly, "Asuma, you didn't even see us clearly, and you dared to attack us first." Asuma, with a full beard on his face, smiled awkwardly and put away the chakra knife in his hand. "Humph, it's a good thing you didn't burn me with ashes." Han Dao wiped the sweat from her cheeks and was about to say the rest. "Otherwise, cough." Asuma quickly coughed loudly to interrupt her, taking the opportunity to cover up so as not to be exposed and let tomorrow know the joke. "Hey, Ming Xian didn't understand for a moment and looked at Han Dao. What? Smoking is harmful to health." Han Dao stopped teasing Asuma and lectured him with a stern face. "Little boy, why are you asking so many questions?" Ming Xian's mouth twitched and he felt resentful in his heart. He changes his face faster than turning the pages of a book. After calming down a little, he looked at Asuma and asked, "Where are you going, Asuma?" "I'm going to catch up with Shikamaru and his group." Asuma also returned to normal and gave him a brief answer to the business. "Now there are two teams of Sound Ninja chasing them closely. The situation is very dangerous." "Sound Ninja?" Ming Xian didn't understand the reason for a while. "Why is this? Although I really want to explain it to you, I have to catch up with them before the Sound Ninja." Asuma secretly estimated that he didn't have much time left, so he said to Mingxian and Han Dao in a short sentence, "When you go to the competition site, ask Gay or Kakashi, and you will know the cause and effect of the whole thing." After saying this, he jumped off the wall and rushed to the direction of their team without caring about their reactions. It seems that the situation at the venue is quite complicated. Han Dao gathered the hair by her ears and looked at the hole above. "Let's go quickly, we are here. There is no point in thinking too much." "Okay." On the roof, the two of them tested each other. "I think we should both stop playing." Orochimaru stopped laughing. "This is not a course in the ninja school." "Oh, that's true," the third Hokage said, and threw away the hat and robe that symbolized the Hokage, revealing the black tight combat uniform underneath. He wore a ninja hat with green layered armor on both sides, and two super long black belts behind the hat. Still wearing that old-fashioned equipment, Orochimaru looked up and down. The third Hokage's combat uniform was equipped with silver protective gear connected to the back on both shoulders, and there was a word fire written on the protective gear. There were two vertical ninja tool bags on the waist, tied with purple ribbons, and mesh wrist guards on both arms and calves. The right arm was equipped with green layered armor, which could provide effective protection in battle. "It seems that you have already predicted your own death." After Orochimaru finished his observation, he stretched out his hand and threw away the wind shadow uniform of the Sand Village, revealing his true self. He gazed at the other person with his long golden pupils. There was no more idle chat between the two. The air currents began to vibrate against each other, causing the roof tiles to creak and break. "I won't show mercy, just because you are old now," Orochimaru said politely to his teacher. "That's exactly what I want." The third Hokage swung his belt. "If your technique is not good, I will have to let you go back to the ninja school to study again." "Really?" Hearing the third Hokage say this, Orochimaru smiled strangely. "Teacher, don't let me down too much. It's amazing, such a strong chakra. Well, it seems that even the air is pressing on me." Several members of the ANBU who were watching the battle felt the pressure of the confrontation between the two and were amazed in their hearts. Almost at the same time, the third Hokage threw a shuriken from his waist bag and flew towards Orochimaru and quickly made a seal and shouted, "Shuriken Shadow Clone Technique." He split a shuriken into more than a dozen real ninja tools and quickly attacked the opponent. Seeing this, Orochimaru calmly raised his hand without panic, quickly made a seal, and whispered, "Summoning Technique Immortality Reincarnation." Seeing his hand seal gesture, the third Hokage was shocked. "That movies." One. Boom. Bang. A heavy coffin emerged from the ground out of thin air. You actually use summoning techniques for defense. The third Hokage thought to himself, and the dead people inside are too. Orochimaru shouted with a smile. The third Hokage gritted his teeth and immediately changed the seal method on his hand at a very fast speed. Damn it, you must stop this third one from coming out. 3. Boom. Just as the third coffin was about to rumble out. Hey. The third Hokage caught up just in time, growled, and forced down the coffin with the number 4 written on it. Unfortunately, it seems that the third one cannot be successfully recruited. Orochimaru smiled. Forget it then. The panels of the 2 coffins that had already come out began to be unable to hold back, and were slowly pushed open from the inside. It seems that the third one has finally been blocked. The third Hokage did not dare to be careless. Then the next step is the most troublesome. Looking at the 2 coffins that were gradually opened, the third Hokage had a complicated mood. Why did he call out those 2 people? Creak. Boom. The coffin panel fell down completely, revealing the 2 people inside. Those 2 adults. The ANBU member in white robes was shocked. Could it be? Another companion beside him also saw who this person was. Who are those 2 adults? Only the new ANBU member behind the white robe did not understand who they were talking about. Hey, how are you going to deal with it, teacher? Orochimaru asked the third Hokage excitedly. No, it should be the third Hokage. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 123 Round Rainbow. Ninja School. Staff Room. Intelligence from the front warns that a considerable number of enemy troops have invaded the village. I think we should lead the students to a safe place as soon as possible. I agree. It's better to pretend to tell the children that this is a routine exercise arranged by the school. Yes, that's fine. This way, the students won't panic. There's no time to lose. Let's act quickly. If we wait until the enemy invades the school, it will be too late. Iruka listened to the other teachers' discussions and said, then let's go back to the classroom and escort the students to a safe place as soon as possible under the pretext of collective evacuation training. Okay, let's mobilize the children now. Iruka and other class teachers stood up from their desks, left the office one after another, and returned to their work. Snap. As soon as Iruka walked into the classroom, he clapped his hands to signal the students in their seats, and when their eyes were attracted by his voice, okay, classmates, Iruka explained to the children, and asked them to get up and leave their seats to cooperate with the school's evacuation drill. Oh, the little ones didn't have much resistance. After all, they had often done this before, and followed the teacher out of the school. Hey, today is such an unlucky day, Moji muttered beside Konohamaru. How could my favorite pink pencil break so suddenly? It's better to study than to do evacuation training. Yuden also muttered a few words. Konohamaru, you have been very quiet since just now. Moji looked at him in confusion. What's the matter? After the whole school studied together for a long time. Without answering Moji, Konohamaru thought, it's really strange that the whole school is doing evacuation training together again. Almost. Iruka saw that the team had walked out of the school for a long time, turned around and said to the little ones, stop now and line up. Look at the expression on teacher Iruka's face. Something must have happened. And Konohamaru looked at the sun in the sky worriedly. Listen up, everyone. No one is allowed to do anything on their own. Iruka was carefully instructing them on the key points of evacuation, but Konohamaru didn't listen carefully. Instead, he stared at the sun and thought, I have been paying special attention to those 2 round rainbows since just now. Recalling a little thing in the past, the autumn wind in the courtyard was covered with moss, and Konohamaru and his grandfather walked to the top of the mountain behind Konoha. Noticing the strange rainbow in the sky, he looked at the third Hokage and asked, Grandpa, there is a strange rainbow in the sky. Huh? The third Hokage raised his bamboo hat and took a closer look. Konohamaru muttered beside him, rainbows like this are really rare. He retracted his gaze and smiled at his grandson. Does Konohamaru like rainbows? Yeah. Konohamaru nodded and pointed, and I have never seen such a beautiful round rainbow. Oh, so that's it. The third Hokage nodded. But, Konohamaru. Konohamaru looked at his grandfather. From ancient times to the present, rainbows have always symbolized snakes, especially this kind of round rainbow, which is considered to be a sign of something bad to happen. The third Hokage patiently told him about rainbows. Ah, such a beautiful thing. How can it be a bad omen? Konohamaru didn't believe it. It must be a lie. The third Hokage heard his grandson say this, and didn't refute it, just smiled at him. Maybe. Konohamaru put away this memory, looked up and thought to himself, the phenomenon of symbolizing snakes. What happened? Whoosh, whoosh. What are you? Puff. As soon as the two entered the venue, they cleared the two small soldiers at the entrance of the cave. Are they all cast into a dream and fell asleep? Hong Dao saw the problem in the audience at a glance. Ding. Ding. Mingshan looked at the black shadows fighting in various places in the venue, shook his head in his heart, and then raised his hand to seal and said, "There's nothing I can do." "Hey, what are you going to do?" Hong Dao was puzzled as he watched him perform ninjutsu. "You'll know in a moment." Mingshan left her in suspense, and in order, Wu, Zu, Yensheng shouted, "Wood style, multiple wood clone technique." Swish, swish, swish. A large number of clones flashed from behind him, and without hesitation, they reinforced the Konoha ninjas who were fighting hard in various places. After forcing Kakashi's attack away, Kabuto jumped onto the railing in the distance, looked up and saw the strange sound at the hole, and thought to himself, "This is not good." As Mingshan's wood clones were split out one after another to join the battle, the situation on the battlefield began to tilt at a very fast speed. A sound ninja was about to launch a sneak attack on his opponent from behind, but suddenly, he was entangled by an unknown branch all over his body, unable to shake off, and subconsciously shouted, "Damn, what is this?" The opponent realized that there was someone behind him, and immediately looked back. Poof. Without any hesitation, he immediately stabbed the sound ninja's heart with a kunai, ending his life. As soon as these clones of Mingshan approached the enemy, they automatically transformed into wooden blocks, and entangled and restrained their movements, and it worked every time. This kind of scene was constantly played out in various places in the audience. Seeing this, Kabuto had to order his men to mobilize more troops to reinforce. K had just kicked over a sound ninja. After seeing this magical scene, he couldn't help but exclaimed, "Is this would release?" Kakashi was also more shocked after turning around and seeing the caster. How is it possible that Mingshan actually has the bloodline limit ability of wood release, and judging by the power, it seems to be more refined and powerful than Yamato. So much so that he temporarily forgot to attack the enemy and stood there in a daze. Bang. Asshole. Kakashi was awakened by the angry shouting from the side. He turned around and found that a sound ninja wanted to sneak attack him, but was entangled by Mingshan's wooden clone. Kakashi easily killed the sound ninja immediately. The person who launched this technique didn't go forward to kill anyone, but was so tired that he was out of breath, with his hands on his knees. "Watch out for the side." Ding. As soon as Hong Dao finished speaking, he flashed to Mingshan's side and kicked away the attacking sand ninja. They are finally here. Kabuto looked at the sand ninja reinforcement pouring in from outside the venue. TSK, I used the wooden clone in vain. Helplessly, Mingshan quickly took out the bottle, poured out a few soldier pills from it, ate 2 for himself, and handed the rest to Hong Dao. "What are you doing?" Hong Dao looked at him stretching his hand in front of her, with something in his palm. "Hurry up and eat the ration pills." Mingshan chewed them up, while drawing his sword and observing, "The sand ninja troops are coming to the competition site now. We are going to have a hard fight next." "Okay." Hong Dao nodded, and without saying anything, he grabbed the rations and stuffed them into his mouth to chew. "I'll be in charge of this side. You go to the other side." "Understood." As the sand ninja's new forces continued to pour in, the battles in other places in the audience became tense again. Ding. Ding. Mingshan and Hong Dao stood back to back, looking at the ninjas from the sound and sand villages attacking from both sides, and shouted together, "Go." Chapter 124 Undead. Ta ta ta. The two walked out of the coffin slowly, and the tiles on the roof creaked as they stepped on them. They looked up at the third Hokage in front of them. Long time no see, monkey. The person who spoke was wearing a black tight combat uniform with red layered armor on the outside, red iron wrist guards on both wrists, and long black hair fluttering in the wind. Huh, you're getting old too, Sarutobi. The person next to him looked up and down at the third Hokage. He had silver hair and red eyes, and an iron Konoha forehead guard in the style of a face protector. There were 3 red marks on his cheeks. He was also wearing a black tight combat uniform with blue layered armor on the outside, and a white down collar on his shoulders, connected to his back. I didn't expect to meet you two again in this way. The third Hokage said apologetically. What a pity. This is bad. It turned out to be that summoning technique. The several members of the ANBU who could only be spectators on the side were all sweating for the current situation of the third Hokage after seeing the person walking out. Senior, who are those two? Only one new member was still confused and didn't know their identities. At this moment, the third Hokage spoke. Please be prepared, first Hokage. Then, he said seriously, second Hokage. HMM. The new member was shocked when he heard this. Hokage? That's right. The white-robed ANBU explained to him sideways. The black-haired one is the first Hokage, and the white-haired one is the second Hokage. Both of them are known as the strongest in the ninja world, but they are the Hokage who founded our village. Immortality reincarnation? The second Hokage suddenly turned behind him and glanced at Orochimaru, the one who summoned us with the forbidden technique. Is this young man? Bang, bang, bang. The 2 heavy coffins were easily knocked down by Orochimaru. The second Hokage praised him highly. You are an amazing guy. You can master my forbidden technique. It doesn't matter if you prepare, but in this case, monkey, we will have to fight you. The first Hokage said indifferently to the third Hokage standing in front of him. You older people, don't chat about unnecessary topics. Orochimaru walked behind the second Hokage with 2 red kunai with characters written on them in his hand. It's about time to start. He was about to take action. It seems that, no matter which world we are in, we still have to continue the endless battle. The first Hokage said expressionlessly, as if he was talking to himself or to Orochimaru behind him. Don't you like it too? Orochimaru replied teasingly. How dare you fool the dead? The third Hokage scolded the traitor. Playing with the dead will not end well. Orochimaru looked at his teacher with a nonchalant smile. Before the performance, you two must first return to your original appearance. As he said, he inserted 2 kunai into the back of the heads of the 2 Hokages. Please be mentally prepared, Sarutobi sensei. After the 2 Hokages inserted the kunai, white smoke began to emerge from their bodies. The 2 Hokages are gradually regaining their vitality. The new member of the ANBU was puzzled. What kind of ninjutsu is that? Immortal reincarnation. The white-robed ANBU whispered. It is a taboo secret technique that allows the dead to be reborn. He explained to the newcomer. Usually, the use of summoning techniques requires the blood of the caster to summon, and as far as I know, this forbidden technique is to call back the souls of the dead, and a living person must be sacrificed as the soul carrier. So, the physical bodies of the 2 adults are the victims. Zin said in shock. Yes, I'm afraid that the bodies of the 2 victims have been covered with a layer of dust and transformed into the original appearance of the summoned souls when they were alive. At the same time, through the spell buried in the brain, the original personality of the soul will be erased, turning them into pure killing puppets. The white-robed ANBU admitted the viciousness of this technique. It's done. Orochimaru was very satisfied. Really, it looks more and more like. The third Hokage rubbed his somewhat cloudy old eyes. They looked like they did when they were alive. Do you know? Orochimaru asked the third Hokage. To hurt the achievement and joy of calling you a teacher in the past. He raised his hand to drive the technique. I have specially set it up for you to experience that kind of joy. Please enjoy it, Sarutobi teacher. The 2 Hokages accepted this order and took mechanical steps at first, moving forward very slowly, but suddenly, they sped up and rushed straight to the third Hokage with awe-inspiring fighting spirit. Bang, bang. Mingshin kicked away to sand ninjas who were surrounding him with a flip. TSK, endless soldiers. Well, the opponent is the Sand Village, one of the 5 great nations. Kakashi's voice happened to sound not far behind him. Ding. After defeating a sound ninja, he quickly approached Mingshin. Where did Naruto go? Mingshin took the opportunity to ask him, while being on guard against the enemy. Shikamaru, Sakura, Kakashi used Akune to resist the enemy's new wave of attacks, and told Mingshin about the various emergencies in the previous match. I see. Listening to him, Mingshin looked at Kabuto, who jumped from the railing in the distance and killed a Konoha ninja with a chakra scalpel. He thought to himself, no wonder she said something on the ship at that time, waiting until the collapse. Then he looked at the third Hokage, who was fighting hard with two enemies in the barrier on the plaque of the world's #1. We must find a way to get there as soon as possible. Mingshin decided in his heart and immediately said to Kakashi, Kakashi sensei, cover me. Okay, what are you going to do? Kakashi asked him without turning his head. Use the wood clone technique again, this time there may be more. Okay. While the two were talking, Mingshin had already quickly formed a seal and whispered, wood style, multiple wood clone technique. Whoosh, whoosh. The wood clones flashed like a tide and rushed to various battle points. Damn it, it's this thing again. Damn it, it's bad. The wood clones that rushed to various places entangled with the enemy army, greatly reducing the pressure on their side. After Mingshin activated the multiple clone technique, his eyes were dizzy. He wiped the sweat from his forehead and quickly took out a soldier's ration pill and swallowed a supplement. He was not Naruto, who could continue to fight without even taking a breath after creating a large number of shadow clones. Are you okay, Mingshin? Kakashi looked at the battlefield, and the situation began to slowly turn in his favor because of the addition of the wooden clone. I'm fine, Kakashi sensei. Mingshin stood up again. Chapter 125 Goodbye Brow. Well, I'm glad you're okay. Be careful. Kakashi saw that he was fine, so he gave him a warning and flew out in an instant to continue clearing the enemies. Mingshin also rushed to another stand with his sword to clear the enemy. It only took him half an incense stick of time to kill the enemies one by one. Just when he was about to breathe a sigh of relief. Hey, why is Rock Lee lying here? Taking advantage of the brief gap, he accidentally glimpsed Rock Lee, who had fallen asleep in the corner of the railing in front. He was lying on the ground with his legs spread out and snoring, drooling. TSK, he's sleeping so soundly. Mingshin was speechless. He quickly walked a few steps to his side and kicked him twice. Unexpectedly, he heard, Sakura, actually this guy was actually talking in his sleep, and he looked stupid like a pig. Fuck. Mingshin couldn't help but say in his heart, sure enough, your usual seriousness is just an act. Forget it, business is more important. Mingshin shook his head, temporarily not thinking about this meaningless detail, and half squatted to help Zyroli solve the illusion. Zyroli reluctantly opened his eyes slightly, frowned, and was confused. What happened to me? It's okay, you just got caught in the enemy's illusion and fell asleep. Mingshin helped Zyroli, who was still in a daze, up, and suddenly, ding, clang, Mingshin casually threw out two shurikens from his leg bag, knocking away the ninja tool attack from behind. Swish, swish. Hearing the harsh sound of breaking wind, the two quickly jumped away from where they were. Almost at the same time as they dodged, 3 or 4 oversized wind demon shurikens were all nailed to the place where they just stood. What's going on? Zyroli asked him from a distance. To put it simply, Konoha was attacked by the sand and sound ninjas. Mingshin drew his sword and glanced at Zyroli with the corner of his eye, loudly and briefly summarizing the current situation. What did you say? Zyroli was shocked, then clenched his fists, indignant. I didn't expect that they would. Whoosh. Dap dap. Zyroli didn't finish his sentence and jumped away to avoid it. He was cut off by the shuriken attack that followed. Ding, ding, boom. TSK, these miscellaneous soldiers. Mingshin looked annoyed, and a big hole was blasted in the wall in front of him, and a large number of ninjas from the sound and sand villages poured in. Damn, Konoha Shengfeng. Zyroli kicked a sound ninja who rushed towards him and performed a spinning bullet attack in the air. Lee. As soon as he landed, he heard the man's call, trembling all over, and turned around. Teacher K. A. Mingshin had a bad feeling in his heart. He turned to look at the man and found that he was shaking his watermelon hair and running fast. He was very flexible and coordinated and rushed towards them. Teacher K. Zyroli saw him coming and ran towards him excitedly. Just when he was about to speak, bang, asshole, K suddenly punched Zyroli in the face, knocking him away. His body spun and hit the wall. With a bang, he fell into it. Fuck, what is this operation? Mingshin was confused. Teacher K. Zyroli came out of the wall with difficulty. As soon as he looked up, he saw K staring at him with tears in his eyes. Lee, you big idiot. Konoha is at the critical moment of life and death. K scolded bitterly. You actually still have the mood to sleep in the stands. Teacher K, I'm sorry. Lee also said with tears in his eyes, remorseful and self-blaming. Stop talking, Lee. K hugged him into his arms and shouted, this time let's burst out our youth and protect Konoha together. Yes, Teacher K. Little Lee also hugged K tightly and responded hysterically. Really, damn it, why did I have to wake this guy up? Mingshin felt that his eyes hurt so much pain that he had to cover his face with his hands and couldn't look straight. Hey, K is doing this again. Even from a long distance, Kakashi could still hear the ghostly screams of the master and apprentice and was very depressed, with helpless twitching at the corners of his mouth. Go, Lee. Yes, Teacher K. Encouraged by K's passion, Lee's figure flashed, frowning and rushing straight towards the Sand Ninja army. Konoha whirlwind. Bang, bang, bang. Clang. Hey, what's wrong with this kid's wrist? It's so hard to cut it? Damn, what a fast speed. Konoha gale. Bang, snap. Oh, well done, Lee. K saw Zyroli nimbly moving in and out of the enemy's camp, making the opponent embarrassed to defend. He clenched his fists and cheered. Youth should be like this. Hey, we are still fighting. Mingshin shook his head speechlessly and couldn't help muttering, you are so old, and you are still clamoring about youth. Just as K was about to turn around and continue fighting, he caught a glimpse of Mingshin, who was depressed and complaining at the side. He strode over and patted his shoulder hard. Thank you for waking up, Lee. I was entangled by the enemy before and didn't have time to help him remove the illusion. No, you're welcome, Teacher K. Mingshin stopped and said, Taai, let's continue to show our youth and defeat them. Well, my last name is Ito. Ahaha, last names are just names. Don't take it too seriously, Shineming. That, my name is Mingshin. It's okay, it's all the same. Haha. Tick tock, tick tock. Well, very good. Everyone is here. No one is left behind. In a dim corridor somewhere, Iruka led the children who had left the ninja school to move deeper into the school, shouting as he walked, students behind, follow closely, and go to the shelter with the teacher. The students all walked in an orderly manner as he was told. Don't panic, stay calm. Konohamaru, what's wrong with you? Moji looked at Konohamaru, who was worried. His face was not good, and he asked with concern, are you feeling uncomfortable in your stomach? Konohamaru shook his head to his friend. It's not a stomachache. He did not open his mouth to explain, but followed Moji silently and uneasily, and walked forward together. Ugh. He covered his mouth with his hands, wanting to cough violently, and blood flowed out from between his fingers. Brother Kimimaro. Aang stood on tiptoes, and patted his bare back with her small hands. Let me fend them off. You. No, girl, you are no match for them. Kimimaro refused decisively, gritted his teeth, and continued to persevere, gnashing his eyes as he scanned the heavy enemy shadows in front of and behind him. Although he was already extremely tired, he gritted his teeth and held on. I say, do you need to fight so hard, just for a mere broken book? Among the many enemies standing in front of the two of them, the leading female ninja in green took a few steps forward, staring directly at Kimimaro with a cold gaze. We just happened to meet on this street, and if we each went our separate ways and passed each other peacefully, it would be nothing, but you insisted on making things difficult for us. Huh? Making things difficult for us? Kimimaro wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, pointed the bone blade at the scroll behind the white-haired masked ninja next to her. You leave our Konoha sealed book behind, and everyone will go their separate ways, and I won't continue to bother you. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.